firstly, thanks for tell me what you've got.
So it's called Willet. It is a copper steel bottle, so it's very unique, beautiful looking bottle. It's a bourbon. It's about 47%, so it's not your average 40% ABV. Really nice, and just very presentable. That's why I thought I'd grab that for you. Something a little bit different.
Man, I appreciate it. And you said you brought some acids.
Yeah.
Maybe explain what it's not first before you explain what it is.
It's definitely not what their name alludes it to be. So it's got nothing to do with acid or any kind of, drugs or anything along the lines of that. But that particular cigar or that brand of cigar is the number one rated cigar, number one selling cigar, I should say, in the US. So it's got a massive market, massive demand for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're infused, or they also have... a lot of the cheaper cigars have been flavored, where they'll literally dip the tobacco in a particular product, chocolate, cherry, whatever it may be, to give it a flavor, where these are infused. So they'll put them in the same vicinity as the particular product. And the tobacco leaf being porous will absorb that flavor. Right. So they've got botanicals. They're really, really beautiful. So that particular cigar, when you're smoking it, will give you a really big aromatic smell from it, which would be very similar to like cinnamon, musk. I don't know if you remember the old pink musk lollies.
Yeah.
So like that. Really beautiful, really aromatic, really good cigar. A good entry-level cigar. For people who don't smoke cigars often, it's a really, really good starting point. So
yeah, it smells amazing.
Yeah. So, and there's two little cigars in there as well, because obviously a big cigar like that, again, not everyone can smoke through them. So having a smaller cigar is a really good way to sort of work your way into enjoying cigars. So
I once heard that the size is also got to do with like the season. So smaller cigars are sort of more useful in winter because you don't want to be sitting outside for 2 hours. Is that right?
I mean, me personally, I hate being outside in the cold. So this size cigar is absolutely fantastic. You're outside for 45 minutes. You have that relaxation. You're able to kick back, relax, and then you go back inside without having to freeze, in such cold weather. And then obviously a larger stick, or as we say, stick meaning cigar, a larger cigar in the warmer months because you're more inclined to be outside, wanting to kick back, relax, and you're not bothered by the weather per se being freezing cold. So it's a lot more enjoyable to be outside for longer periods of time during summer. So.
Yeah, awesome. Hopefully by the next time I have you on, I have a studio where I can smoke these.
Whoa.
And the people can watch me poorly attempt to learn. So for those that don't know, obviously most people don't know, we caught up a few weeks ago at your place.
Yes.
And you gave us gave me a little masterclass on cigar smoking.
What did you think?
It was good. It was a different experience because the previous times I was tunneling, canoeing, all these fancy words. I experienced all of it. I'd be burning my throat and smoking it too fast or too slow. And so it's good. I think it's one of those things to properly enjoy it. You really do have to do it right.
Absolutely.
It's not 100%. Something that anyone can pick up and enjoy because there's a way about it.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's so much more to cigars than just smoking. It's the relaxation, the camaraderie, all the other things that come with smoking a cigar. Like you're saying, it's not, and people probably get upset with me when I say this, it's nothing like cigarette smoking. Because you're not smoking for the sake of just a nicotine hit. It's more about the relaxation and just having that Zen moment where you can just like really just kick back, relax, and not worry about anything else. And it's like drinking a fine bourbon, like you're drinking that neat or with an ice cube or something along the lines of that. Not because you're trying to get smashed or trying to ride yourself off, but because you want to appreciate the actual product itself. So, learning about the products, having a good understanding about them always really does help. So
yeah, awesome. No, I completely agree. Like even the other night when we were hanging out, and obviously we had Mick with us, it was just the in Arabic the ada, the hangout.
Of course, 100%.
Like having a smoke, having a drink. And then you even showed off your cheese platter skills as well. So, we got the full experience.
It's something that I enjoy. So, God willing, one day my wife and I have been talking about trying to open up a bar or a rooftop bar where we can have cigars, we can have bourbons or whiskeys, and then obviously have the food incorporated too. We just love that. We love that atmosphere. We learnt about that when we were in Lebanon. It's just the things that we don't do enough of here in Australia.
What is it you did in Lebanon that sort of inspired that?
There was a place called the Music Hall. I'm not sure if you've ever been to the Music Hall. So Music Halls like an auditorium essentially, and they've got a stage down the front, and you pretty much just, there's groups or tables, and each table you just sort of kick back with, say, 6 or 8 of your mates, and you just really unwind. It's like just all about good music or good entertainment happening in the background, and you're having like a nice bourbon or a nice whiskey, probably more of a whiskey in Lebanon, and a cigar, and it's just relaxation. It was like a light bulb moment for me. It's just like this light bulb went off, and I'm like, man,
we need to bring this to Sydney.
We just don't do it enough. Here, it's like you've got to be in bed by 8 o'clock. You've got to be up a certain time. You have to be at work for 8 to 10 hours a day. And you do it all again the next day, and again the next day, and again the next day. And then come the weekend, you're like, man, all I want to do is just stay home.
Yeah, stay home, relax, catch up on some sleep.
So, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And we realize how short life is, and we don't ever really, we don't attend to it enough. We're always, okay, yeah, it doesn't matter. We just need to strive that little bit more. We have to push that little bit more. But we never really understand. We're never really grateful for all the things that we really do have right now, because within an instant, all of that can be taken. So you're always pushing for the next thing, but how do you know that's always going to be there? So
yeah, it's almost like this obsession with tomorrow. We forget about today.
Absolutely.
100%. We're just so obsessed with what's happening tomorrow, and it's very easy to get caught up into it, and it's very hard to get out of it as well. Yeah. And you got to be quite strict with yourself.
Absolutely. And that's why enjoying like a nice bourbon or something that you spend a little bit of money on, you're more inclined to just
slow down. Yeah.
And enjoy it.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? So like you can go buy a $50 bottle, and that might be someone's budget, and that's completely fine. You know what I mean? But the most important thing isn't actually this or this. It's actually sitting and being still.
Yeah.
And enjoying the present, and that's what we tend to not understand enough of. And like I said, in Lebanon and in Greece, I saw that. I was like, what the heck, man? This is crazy how people will have to get up and go to work tomorrow, the same as me, but they'll still enjoy themselves to, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then go home, shower, sleep, whatever, and get up and go to work, do it the next day. We don't do that enough.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible you've just found the perfect way to justify you buying expensive whiskeys and cigars? Like to your wife or to your mates or something? It's such a good explanation. I feel like I can justify it as well now.
Yeah, I mean, if you can call it a justification, but it was just a light bulb moment for me. It really was. It was a light bulb moment where I just thought, man, we just need to make sure we do more of this. You know? And that's why when you came over with Big Mick, for me, it's just a passion.
Yeah.
Because
that was clear enough for sure.
We just
that
don't
you love
do
it.
it. We don't do it enough. And that's what I find that we lack here. We're always, pushing, and for what?
I find the similar thing with, say, like a barbecue. No one lights up a barbecue for a 10-minute hangout.
Exactly.
Like if 100%. You're going to spend half an hour getting the coals going, you're going to sit around, and when you're done, chuck on some potatoes and hang out. And similar to the cigars and the whiskey,
it's the camaraderie. It
brings people together.
Psychology of just kicking back, relaxing, and unwinding conversations that happen from it. Like a cigar isn't a 10-minute thing. Again, like I said, it's not about a nicotine hit. So when you're sitting down, it'd be, awkward if we were to sit down, have a cigar and just look at each other.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So the conversation clearly and obviously will just start flowing.
Yeah.
So the things that come from it are incredible. And again, it's like, as men, and no disrespect to females, but as men, we tend to we tend to bottle a lot of things up. We don't talk about a lot of stuff. And I found with cigars, man, you see a lot of people just open up. They just start talking and talking and talking, and it's really good.
Look, it's definitely something to be said about the differences between the men and women and how we deal with issues. And I think, and you tell me what you think, but I think a large part of it is our wives and our children depend on us so much.
Yep.
It's very hard to lean equally on each other. Sometimes you've got to be leaned on, but then you need someone to lean on.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think. That's where I think the brotherhood and the fraternity is very vital for men. In that regard.
Absolutely.
It's like in scripture, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another.
Absolutely.
And so,
100%.
Of course, you still lean on your wife in many ways, and men lean on their women in many ways, but there's almost a limit, in my view, there's a limitation. And you can never pour on them equally what they pour on you. That'd be a disaster. And I don't think they want that. They might say they want that. I don't think they want that.
So, I mean, from my perspective, it's definitely needed, like to have your brotherhood around you and the boys that you can lean on and also open up to. As you mentioned, you can't open up fully like that to your wife because your wife's looking at us as that
that rock. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you start like, and again, some people may, but you can't just fall apart and start being like that, especially when they're looking at you to be that pillar of strength, So that's why it's good. When we smoke cigars, I said so many guys that I've kicked back with and so many times,
they find an opening to just start leaning on each other a bit more.
That's it. And it's just the conversation flow. And even now, my wife has enjoyed a couple of cigars, and even the conversation between me and her will just start flowing, and it's amazing. And it's not only about the cigars or whatever, it's just the conversations that come from it. And again, being present and really enjoying those times.
So the cigar slows down everything. Absolutely. And then everyone can relax, and then they can start speaking while they relax, and things go on.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good point. I've had some experiences in the past where I may have had certain thoughts or issues I'm dealing with, whether it be with a girlfriend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, man, should I bring it up? I think before I bring it up, I'm just going to call a mate.
Yeah.
And it's resolved in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It probably wouldn't have been 2 minutes if it was, just so many things. We learn to just, if we look to each other, and you call a mate and I say, Simon, man, this is happening. You say, oh, man, that's normal.
Of course, we've been there, done that, man.
You've been there, done that.
Someone, I may not have been there, but someone else may have been there, done that. We've all walked different paths. We've all been down different avenues, and we've all experienced different things in our lives. So,
and found different ways to cope with it.
Absolutely, 100%. Different coping mechanisms, man. It's massive. Like my wife isn't such like crazy how you can deal to that particular situation, or how you can cope in that particular situation. I said it's taken me many years to understand these things and be through many different trials to be able to get to that point where I can cope or be able to analyze it and then deal with it in a different way to other people. So it's all growing and learning, and being around positive people. It's always a massive bonus too.
Yeah. Well, it's a good segue because look, obviously, I've been speaking to you for a few weeks about coming on the show, and you've known Mick for a long time. I've known Nick for a while, and he said, man, you got to speak to Simon. He's got an amazing story. And your story is an interesting one, which we'll try and crack open. But the way you're speaking about who you surround yourself with and what it means to sort of be a masculine figure in your family, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that shifted over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I might just let you sort of, jump on the mic and say, like, what is it that happened with you that was such a drastic change? Because you obviously live a certain life now, but you obviously didn't always live that life. So,
I mean, we all have our own ups and downs, our personal battles, our personal challenges, and mine was, when I was in my, I think, like 20s, something like that. My family, excuse me, my family went through some trials and, other bits and pieces, and that sort of, for me as a young man at that age, I wanted to be separate, or not separate, I wanted to be distant or not present as such with some of the things that were happening, So I'd go out and I'd party and I'd do other sorts of stuff.
You wanted to escape.
Exactly. Wanted to have that escape and have that release. And you start mingling with other people and start, hanging out with other people where you think, oh, this guy's really cool. He understands me. And you start, doing stupid things that you probably shouldn't be doing as per se. I don't know what I can and can't say.
You can say whatever you want. You can swear. You can just be honest. That's all. We just want the story raw. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just going to be careful, make sure I don't say too much.
Yeah, that's up to you. That's up to you.
No, but like I said, you start taking drugs and drinking, and that's what a lot of people do nowadays, and a lot of people, and one of my biggest things that I say now, you don't always get a second chance. And I think I said this to you many times, and I was very, very fortunate. I had a lot more than a second chance.
Yeah. But so you mentioned that you sort of started you were meeting people that you felt understood you.
Yes, correct.
What did they understand about you exactly?
Well, they didn't really understand me. What they understood is that they were also in the same sort of situation that I was in.
They also wanted to escape something, yeah.
So you start drinking, you start taking drugs, you start partying, you start doing, stupid stuff like that. And you sort of, like anything, you spend enough time with someone, you start building a relationship with them. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, and you start doing, as I've mentioned to you before, you start doing some stupid things when you start hanging around those people.
Yeah.
So it's, hanging out with some of the guys, we would, partake in how can I say this without getting myself in trouble? Partake in some illegal activities.
Yeah.
You know, and you think that hanging out with these people that they're truly your mates. You know, because at the time you think everything's good and everyone's well and everyone's hanging out and it's great fun. But one thing that a lot of the younger guys nowadays don't really understand is that a lot of that is smoke and mirrors. You know, that kind of crowd and that kind of scenery, you don't always, as I mentioned, don't always get a second chance with it. So being mindful, hanging out with those people, your life can change within an instant. And some of the boys that I was hanging out with those present times are now in prison for a very, very long time, if not life. They did some really serious crimes, and I was very close with them. You can probably see on my arm that I've got a certain branding. I won't show you my other arm because it obviously
reveal the branding. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, with that, there is big consequences, massive consequences.
Yeah. So to be clear, obviously without names, but like, were you in a gang? Or?
Yeah, I was in a gang. I was in a brotherhood. So
what's the difference between a gang and a brotherhood?
It's essentially the same.
Semantics?
So, I mean, for brotherhood, we started off with pure intentions of just being purely brothers. You know, hanging out with each other. If we needed support, we would support one another. My brother used to own a tattoo parlor. And, you know, with owning a tattoo parlor, there's other politics that are involved in it, you know, and you need to be very, very cautious where you open up a tattoo parlor, who you associate with, who you don't associate with. And,
like a territorial?
Very territorial.
Oh, right.
Very, very territorial.
Is that everywhere? The tattoo parlors everywhere?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit different nowadays because there was a massive shift in regulations with the local governments, and like obviously the police got heavily involved. Now you have to be licensed to be a tattooist. You have to be licensed to be a tattoo shop owner. So there's a lot more rules and regulations that are involved in it. So as I was saying, we started off with very, very genuine intentions, you know, brotherhood, just to be there for one another, support one another. But unfortunately, being in that industry of owning a tattoo parlor brought along a very dark side. You know, people want to say, well, hang on a second, you own this tattoo parlor, you now need to pay us a certain amount of money.
Oh, well.
And
that would happen?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I thought that was just like in the movies,
no,
you know, in the
definitely
1960s in the Bronx and Brooklyn. And
yeah, I wish it was, man. Yeah. I wish it was. I'll never ever forget. I remember sitting down having dinner with my brother. He got a phone call, and I just looked across at the table. I looked at him, and his face just sort of went went white, and he just looked at me. He goes, "We've got to go." I'm like,
"Here we go."
Here we go. I'm like, "What happened?" He's like, "Someone went to the shop, and they're asking for money." So, it happens. Definitely does happen. It's I call them hyenas, bottom feeders. It's a disgusting thing to do.
What did they do to the shop?
The initial stage, they went and they just said, "Listen, we're here to collect some money." And obviously, it's like if someone came to your house and said to you, "Hey, Francis, I'm here to collect some money from you at your house. What are you going to do?"
Yeah,
with all your might, you're going to do whatever you can to protect your home.
Yeah, of course.
This is my home. I've worked hard to do this and to get this and where I am. So, emotions were high, clearly, and so we went down. Sorted it out. They sort of went away. They said, "Listen, we're going to come back if you don't pay this money." And I said, "Listen, I'm here. You guys are here. We're not paying nothing. If there's a conflict, if there's an issue, we'll resolve it now." And they're like, no, it's all good. We'll come back. And they came back. My brother was at the shop by himself. I'm not sure where I was that night. But he had a big confrontation there's about 15 guys, and he ran in by himself. They smashed the shop up, and they did some other stupid bits and pieces. And things got really, really heated at this point. It was on
15 guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Some were kids, some were, just
they just round up a bunch of guys and
just trying to prove themselves.
Yeah.
So he kicked him out of the shop, whatever else happened. And then things were about to escalate really, really badly. And the guys that were coming to the shop, without saying any names, were probably some of the baddest dudes in Australia. Very, 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 very bad people around the around 2015, there was a certain group of Middle Eastern men that were causing a lot of havoc in Western Sydney.
Mm.
And they were the ones that came down. And things were about to get very, very heated after this particular confrontation that happened at the shop. And me being me, I'm a very personable person. I love people. I meet people all the time. My brother was just saying to me, man, because you'd be put in a room and freaking start conversation with anyone. He goes, how the hell do you do it? And I'm like, that's just me, you know?
Yeah.
And through that, I was very, very blessed because at the gym that I was training at, weirdly enough, one of the head members of an opposing group, I was training with him every day and actually befriended him. But it was his guys that actually went to my brother's shop.
And you didn't know?
I didn't know, and he didn't know.
So you guys are in sort of different gangs or brotherhoods.
Correct.
And almost at war with each other.
Like
and you guys are good
to
mates.
Kill each other. Literally
training at was it like a martial arts gym or something?
I was doing martial arts at that particular gym and he was just doing weights. But obviously I became good mates with him, seeing him every day, you know, spending enough time with them. Again, how I was saying, like you meet these people that are so-called mates, but you start just spending more and more time with them. So you build that relationship. So this particular guy, he was like the head of the opposing group. I was driving past my gym and I seen my brother talking to this guy. And me just assuming that here's my brother talking to this guy because he knows him from the gym.
Mm.
But they were having a meeting
about what's been going
happening on and the potential explosion that was about to go on from that point forward. And I pulled up and I saw my brother and I'm like, hey, how you going? And I gave him a hug and I saw the other guy. I'm not going to mention his name. I saw the other guy, gave him a hug and he was with the third person. The other guy that he was with, he was with the second person, one of his associates, was like looking at me like tripping out going, what the hell's going on here? You know, I've just rocked up with three guys. I've said hello to both of these boys, which is my brother and my mate. And my mate looked at me, he's like, how do you know this guy? I said, this is my brother. And he sort of stopped and he looked and he goes, your brother? I said, yeah. I go, you don't know him? He's like, no, I've never met him before. He goes, I'm from the opposing group. I'm like, what the hell? And so he said, listen, he goes, this is a situation. He goes, we were made to believe that you guys are doing illegal so-and-so. We want a cut of that. So listen, man, we don't do any of that sort of stuff. It's purely a business.
How were they made to believe that? So they had the impression that you were essentially doing illegal stuff and making money illegally on their territory.
Well, it wasn't their territory, but, you know, they just come and say, this is just, this is us. We own this territory now.
So what gave them that impression, if not you guys?
There was another group who wanted us to join them. And we said, listen, we're not about that sort of stuff.
Mm.
And so they got upset about that. So they started some rumors. And they gave
just to cause a bit of trouble for you guys.
Cause trouble, absolutely. So my mate, I ended up explaining the situation to him. He said, man, listen, he goes, I trust you and understand what you're saying. He goes, let me just do a background check on your story. And he goes, I'm going to come back to you. And 20 minutes later, man, he called me up. He goes, listen, he goes, I'm sorry about everything. Let's just call this off and we're done and dusted. And man, honestly, it was scary as shit. Because his associate is in prison for 20-something years for a triple murder. So the guy was never, ever afraid to pull a gun out and shoot you where you stand. And I get goosebumps just saying it to you. Like, someone like that isn't cut from the same cloth as us. We understand morals. We understand consequences. Someone like that doesn't think like that at all.
In the moment, he'll pull the trigger.
Does not care, man. At all. I literally got goosebumps all over my body, bro.
I can see it from here. I can see it from here.
That shit, even now when I think about it, blows my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is where I talk about, like, hanging out with certain people, wholesome people who want the best for you, people who want your best interest first. You know what I mean? They're not about what material that you can bring to them or what you can bring, what they can make from you.
Yeah.
Where a lot of those people in those circles, that's what it's about. It's what
you can bring to the table.
It's all about a dollar figure. It's about what can you bring to the table and what can I make from you. And I started understanding this more and more. And it was in those like sort of times where, you know, towards the end of when all this sort of stuff happened, you realize that more and more. And I was very, very blessed to have people like Mick in the background always saying to me, bro, come to church with me, come to mass, let's go to adoration, let's go do these sorts of things. And if it wasn't for someone like Mick, and I could also be in prison. Because the same shit that my so-called best mates were doing at the time, as I mentioned to you when we'd spoken previously, when they were getting investigated for what happened, myself and my brother got investigated too by the police after they did some, very, very, very bad stuff to someone. And the police like, Simon, we know you did X, Y, Z, but we don't want you. We want the other guys. What can you tell us about them? I said, listen, I haven't spoken to these guys for 6 months. I've been going to church. Going to church more and more now. I've sort of parted ways with them. I don't speak to them. And I was very lucky, very, very blessed, bro, that I did start doing those sorts of things, going to mass, separating myself from those guys because, man, like I said,
things got worse and worse. So like, take the situation with your mate at the gym and your brother. It almost makes you wonder, had you not driven past that time and seen it, or things could have really escalated there.
Massively.
And so what happened after that point? Like, obviously that issue's resolved, but at what point, obviously you had some people like Mick and other guys in your life that were redirecting you. At what point did that occur? How long had you been involved in this brotherhood before you started to... Because you said in your 20s is when you sort of got involved.
Yeah.
How old were you when you sort of started to move away?
It was probably my, the one of the biggest turning points was obviously what I just explained then. But then was also what happened in Iraq and Syria. So it was sort of, was that 2014?
Yeah, that's right. 2014, 2015.
Yeah. So I would have been around about my late 20s, something like that. Late 20s, 28, something like that. That was a big turning point in my life. Massive turning point in my life.
Right. How so?
And you understand more and more how overprivileged we are and how much we take for granted.
Like you've got people in Iraq and Syria being slaughtered and
people having their heads cut off and
crucified.
having, hung by a cross and made a mockery of. And here we are. We can freely go to church on Sunday. We can freely go to church during the week. We can go to adoration. We can go to confession. We can do all the beautiful sacraments that we were able to do. But yet, I'm too busy. I've got to do this. I've got to work late tonight. I've got to work on the weekend. There's always an excuse. But what about those people in Iraq and Syria? They were pushed to a point where they had to go underground and they still tried to go to church. They still tried to go to mass. That for me was a massive turning point in my life. Massive. Thinking, man, I've got the freedom to be able to go to mass when I want and do the things that these people wish that they could do freely, but yet I choose not to. So thankfully, man, at that point, I just parted ways with my old life and really came back to the church and started, being more proactive in my faith. Doing, I did some missionary work overseas. I've been to Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam. Where else have I been? Thailand. And I've gone and worked in these orphanages. Again, they make you even more aware of how overprivileged we are.
Make you appreciate a little bit more the situation you're in.
100%. And one of the biggest things, again, another light bulb moment was, I'd always end up in hospital when I was in those parts of the world. You'd drink water and you'd get bacteria from, the water and so on and so forth. And you'd end up in hospital with like a stomach bug or whatever. And you go to get an injection or whatever, and they say, okay, it's $50. And they look at you like they're cringing to say it's $50. I'm like, yeah, no worries. You just tap it or swipe your card, whatever it was. And it makes you think like there's these kids that are in orphanages who will get sick but really can't afford
even basic care.
No. And we take that for granted. We really take that for granted. It's those sorts of things that really make you think how lucky we really are and make you want to change as a person. And I was very, very blessed and fortunate to be able to go and see those things and work in those areas and use my skills in my trade, be able to, do water filtration systems at these places. I wasn't going there for a holiday. I was taking solar panels with me in my luggage and wire and all sorts of stuff so I could go there and help these people.
You're a plumber, right?
Yeah, correct. So, yeah, it's though a lot of things really happened that made what I was doing as a very self-indulged person very, very clear. That it's not all about Simon. Going out spending money on food and clothes and jewelry and all that sort of stuff, where I'm not saying it's a bad thing. We're all, able to treat ourselves, but living that lifestyle of just money all the time doesn't do nothing for us at all.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, what is it about service to others or the charity work or the missionary work? What is it about it specifically that helps you come back onto the path that you're on? And I think you've answered that. It's that it took you away from this lifestyle of self-indulgence.
Absolutely,
like there's a world
100%.
outside of me.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And you see like these young children who, whose parents unfortunately would have died or, who couldn't look after them. So they'd offer them to the orphanages. And, you see that sort of stuff and it just makes you really self-evaluate. It makes you really think about, what am I doing? What am I doing in the world either to make this a better place or B, how am I assisting these young people? So.
Are you hearing that?
Yeah.
I think
it's mine?
No. I think it's accidentally connected to the Bluetooth of the mixer.
It's so good.
We're still going.
So yeah, that's it was through that service, through those, going to those places, meeting some incredible priests and sisters and nuns and bishops who were just, again, really, really selfless, were there to serve their community. Just blew me away. Coming from a Western world or a Western culture where you open the fridge, it's full of food. You turn the tap on, you can drink the water. And one of the biggest things that I was, as I was alluding to earlier, where I end up in hospital from, brushing my teeth with their water. Here we flush our toilet with the same water we drink.
Yeah, wow.
So when you really think about that, like how
I don't think I've ever considered that.
How self-entitled are we?
That we drink the same water we flush our toilet with.
Yeah.
And you got sick from the water that you used to brush your teeth with.
Shit, yeah. Put me on my backside, man. I was in hospital. I was flogged, man. I'll probably use another F word, but
yeah,
I was well and truly smashed, man. Killed me.
Wow.
So those sorts of things, like that, for me, I don't overanalyze everything, but I analyze a lot of stuff that's happening around me because a lot of the times if we don't take the time to stop and think, it just becomes consistent. Mouse on a mouse wheel. Just keep running, not even thinking about what's happening. So thinking about what we do and analyzing what we do helps us grow as people. That's what I believe. And that's it's moved me away from certain things in life. It's made me better understand life. And, had I not had those realizations, again, like I said, man, I could be in prison quite easily, very, very easily. It's scary as shit to even think what, I could be in prison for. So, thanks be to God, man, that I was able to make some good decisions and followed by having good people around me.
So, we had the whole situation, Iraq, Syria, ISIS, and that sort of made you appreciate a lot more sort of your ability to practice your faith.
Yep.
And then you started going on these mission trips and sort of focused on giving rather than the life you've lived of just what can I get for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was in that time that you started to split and the people you used to be around started doing worse and worse things.
Yeah.
And that's what you mean by you just missed out on prison.
Yeah.
Because had you stuck around, you probably would have been in for
I mentioned to you when we weren't on camera, obviously, what these dudes had done. They, I can say it now because I should, I'm not elaborating. I'm not trying to glorify it by no stretch of imagination or whatever. And God rest the soul of the person that passed away. They killed someone.
Yeah.
And for a stupid amount of money, which was like, mate, you would never ever think that someone's life would be worth that little.
Yeah,
you
wow.
know? But it's that, again, like I said, there's consequences for all our actions. And sometimes you might be in the spur of the moment where shit can hit the fan real quick and you be put in a position or a consequence that can change your life forever. And now when I say I analyze stuff, I tend to not go out to certain places. Straight away I'm thinking, I don't want to be put in a position. I don't want to be put in a position where it's going to be me or them. I don't want to be put in a position where it could be a compromising position where someone says something to me because of the way that I look, or what are you staring at?
So when you say certain places, like certain clubs or certain areas or certain
Definitely
whatever.
go to clubs. You never see me in a club.
Yeah,
I will not go to clubs at all.
That's actually an interesting point because a lot of people have this mentality, and it's usually people who haven't really seen probably as much as you've seen, where it's, oh, look, if I'm going to do this, I'm just there for myself and to enjoy myself with my friends. I'm not looking for trouble. And I've always been of the view, even though I haven't experienced what you've experienced, I just don't want to be somewhere where there's a heightened risk of things going wrong.
Testosterone, man. Testosterone.
And when you're like, I'm 6'4", buddy, over 120 kilos. I'm a walking target. I see myself as a walking target. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I've got like a resting, I want to kill you face half the time. And I just think I don't want to be in a position where I brush shoulders with someone and, you know.
And it's not for young and old. And man,
and we see it all the time. How many times we see on the news, some guy was just walking, got king hit his head.
And
he's
this is what
dead.
I say to you, man, like shit like that, it can change your life in a split second.
Yeah.
Can change your life. And those, you know, those boys that I spoke about, unfortunately, they were put in a position and whatever happened and someone died from it. But stop for a second and think about it. Had you not put yourself in that position, you wouldn't have that outcome because you wouldn't have been there in the first place.
Just avoid the situation entirely.
Wherever you can. You know, I was in Thailand, man, and unfortunately, I tried to, you know, this is probably against my better judgment. I just said that I don't go to clubs, but at that particular time I was at a club. We were in Thailand. We were just relaxing, went to a bar for a couple of drinks, and I was there for a training camp. And
you were there with mates or something?
Yeah, there was about 8 of us. And there was another group of Aussies. And the unfortunate thing about those Southeast Asian countries like Bali and whatever, a lot of people go there just to get smashed, drink themselves stupid, speak to the locals like they're, you know, peasants or whatever it may be. And, you know, against my better judgment, I went to this club with my mates and a fight broke out. And, mate, I got glassed up here 2 times. I got bottled here. Had a massive punch up with some guys.
How did the fight start? And I asked this because I know how it started.
It was a bottle of water.
Yeah, and it just shows how quickly it can happen.
A bottle of water. Man, that's it. That's what I'm saying to you. Like, literally, shit can happen over something so stupid as some water being spilt on someone. But those guys aren't there for pure intentions. They're not there just to kick back, relax, and have a couple of drinks. Because even when they got sprayed with water, I'm like, boys, come to the bar. Let's get a couple of drinks. At that point, they thought that I was scared. But that was the least of my emotion. I was definitely not scared.
So they took your effort of de-escalation as a sign of weakness.
Absolutely.
Like he's worried.
100%. Yeah, 100%. They're like, oh, look at this guy. He's scared. We're going to, you know, pursue him now. We're going to scare him. We're going to try and put it on him. Man, I'm not the least scared in that situation. I'm comfortable being in uncomfortable positions. I did martial arts for a long time, doing kickboxing, MMA. And so that's why I was there. I was there for, obviously, a kickboxing camp. But, you know, you try and de-escalate the situation. Again, had I not been there, that would have been the best resolution because I wouldn't have been put in that position. But then, obviously, I tried to de-escalate the situation, and sometimes you just can't, you know? So you end up having to defend yourself against people who are going to hit you with bottles and glasses and so on and so forth. And I still wear the scars on my fingers from the unfortunate situation, you know, from punching on with people and hitting people and, you know, teeth breaking in that unfortunate situation. And again, it's not something that I'm proud of at all. But what I'm trying to make a point of is that if we do not put ourselves in those positions,
It would have never happened.
You've eliminated the potential chance of something
It's
happening.
a good point. The whole, sometimes there's nothing you can do to de-escalate. There's only one way out, and it's through.
100%.
And so
100%,
instead of thinking there's nothing I could have done, it's like, well, there is something you could have done. You could have not gone.
And that's the reality of
entirely.
it, man. That's the reality. And sometimes, it's like that. I'll have one extra drink, or I'll just stay here for another half an hour. Or it's those famous words, oh, we'll just stay here for another half an hour.
Just one more.
And then we'll go. And it's, man, you're there. You've had a good time. Just go. And I was very, very blessed. Like when that thing happened in Thailand, again, man, we destroyed this club. There was about 25 guys punching the absolute shit out of each other. Chairs were breaking. They destroyed this place. People laying on the floor. It was freaking hectic. I was covered in blood from head to toe. I'd split across my head. You can see the scar there. Got scars up into my hair. And in Thailand, man, the cops are looking to grab you. They want a pay packet. They don't care about what you've just done. What they care about is what they're going to take from you. Otherwise, you're going to prison. So you have to pay them 10, 20, 15 grand, whatever it may be. At that point, are you going to try and argue with them and say, oh, no, I'm not going to pay you 5 grand? Okay, you're going to prison.
Is that like official bailout money, or it's just corrupt cops
No,
just doing?
Corrupt, bro. It's crazy. It's crazy. You see shit like that all over. When you're there, I spent a lot of time in Thailand, and I was there, prior to having my, change in life, my change of views in life, and was mates with a cop over there. And the cop used to take us out on outings. So what he would do, he would put us in the car. He'd give us his service pistol when we were in Thailand, just let us shoot it at the range and stuff like that. But then he'd tell us to go sit in the car or walk out so he could drive us around to the next place, and he'd walk back into the shooting range, for instance, say, okay, listen, I brought these Westerners here. They just spent $500. Now I want my cut out of that, So he'd extort the place, and they can't say nothing to him because he's a cop. So crazy, man. It's crazy. It's a very, very different world. That sort of, say dark side of life. It's just, it's shit. There's nothing exciting about it whatsoever, man. Man, I'd much rather be at home with my kids, my wife, my family, my mates, and just chilling over any of those, past experiences that I had. Because honestly, I keep saying it, man, within an instant, shit can change real quick.
Your whole life changes. Absolutely,
man. 100%. And you think, like, there was a saying where a guy said, ask a person doing life in prison if he'd commit the crime twice.
Yeah.
So you think about it, like the dude spending, life in prison for doing whatever stupid activity he did, would he do that again? Mate, it'd be a very, very slight, if possibly no, at all cases.
Yeah. So considering, I think obviously it's a bigger problem for men in terms of getting involved in gangs and violence and a lot of these activities. I mean, women have their own problems, but this is our problem as men.
Absolutely.
Where do you think we've gone wrong as a society in teaching men how to be men? Because that's a big part of it, right? I'm guessing when you're in your 20s involved in this stuff.
It starts before that as well, bro. It starts before that. Like they glorify this shit on TV.
That's what I mean.
Underbelly.
So yeah, okay.
They put underbelly. Bro, that shit blows my mind. It's like people who watch, and no disrespect to the people that watch this stuff, but people that watch, what are those, like Married at First Sight, all these like reality TV shows.
Yeah.
It's all make-believe.
Yeah.
All that shit is it's just for ratings. Some people go, oh yeah, it's okay, I'll watch it just because it's just it's good to watch it. Yeah, but subconsciously, it stuffs with your head.
Yeah.
And they glorify stuff. And the same as like there's Underbelly series and, there's other shows that are very similar, King of the Cross and all those sorts of things. They glorify
a certain
the shit life. They think, but they don't tell you how many people died or how many parents had to go see their children bashed or stomped on or overdosed from drugs. You know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff happens all the time. All the time. Now, I'll never forget, I was in a hotel room and I was going out somewhere and I don't even know, this is years ago, so I can't even completely tell you the story, but I remember walking into someone else's hotel room who I didn't even know, and there's a dude like OD'd on the couch. Like, man, the guy's eyes rolled into the back of his head. He was like out. man, I don't know what happened to him. Because I didn't even know what I was doing in these other guys' apartments. I was probably freaking off my head as well, you know, and walked in there. But the consequences of that, man, someone's parents are going to get a phone call. And that's what I say. Like, they glorify this shit on TV, like Underbelly and that, but they don't show you the dark side or the consequences of those lives. So people tend to think, oh, yeah, it's okay to live that lifestyle. It's really not. It goes against everything we're taught.
Yeah, I guess my issue with it is we're sold this, like if you were to create a card of, you know, the ideal man and what characteristics they have, it's almost like these shows, the world, society, whoever it is, it's like to be a man, you have to be extremely strong, you have to be aggressive, ultra protective, make sure everyone knows you're the alpha, you're in charge.
Yeah.
You know, if they mess with you, they're going to cop it. No one can mess with you. And that sort of version of masculinity is sort of what they're referring to when they talk about toxic masculinity now.
Yeah.
Mind you, when they talk about toxic masculinity, I think they're talking about the good stuff as well. So we can, we'll talk about that a bit later. But we're sold sort of this lie about what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
Whereas like being a man, it's being accountable, responsible,
absolutely,
calm in the storm,
absolutely,
not moving.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, the actor Shia LaBeouf or LaBeouf, whatever his name is. He's converted now.
Yeah. God bless him.
So he was asked once, or he asked someone, you know, what's the most masculine object in nature? You know, and the answer was a mountain.
Yeah.
It doesn't move with the weather. It doesn't waver. It's extremely consistent and solid and strong, and you can build on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good example.
Absolutely.
You know, but we're 100%. Sold this completely different version, like, oh, if you're the best fighter in this gym, he's the biggest man, sort of mindset.
It's
you know,
crazy, man. It's crazy, and it's like we see more and more of it today, and it's unfortunate because being traditional, I think is a really, really good place to start. Understanding traditional values, being a traditional person, and I talk about you know, like drugs and stuff, but you know, I've been to weddings recently where you see like these grown men who are parents, like running into the bathroom to go have a line of coke. You're thinking, man, what are you relaying to your children or to your grandchildren, or what are you displaying to them as, you know, the rock or the masculine figure in their family? It's very, very sad, man. But because they see a lot of this stuff on TV and they think it's okay. You know, it's I don't know. It's very sad the way that even just masculinity itself is being attacked now. Yeah. You know, you see more and more of it. People saying, oh, you know, it's a bad thing. It's definitely not a bad thing. We need it. We need the equilibrium. If it's all one side, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It definitely doesn't work. We need the push from both sides.
So I've always been of the view that the responsibility lies always first and foremost with our dads. Like, it's your job. You've got a son, right? It's your job to teach your son what it means to be a man.
Yep.
Obviously, your wife has a role and everyone else has a role, but you specifically, firstly by example, and second through teaching. You don't have to give too many details, but do you feel you had that from your old man?
To a certain degree, I did. But unfortunately, and it's like a lot of new migrants to Australia, is that they came here with nothing. So what did they do? They had to bust their asses working, and they weren't always there to be that perfect role model
present as
to their children. So that can play, you know, a double-edged sword. Obviously, they're trying to help their children, but then they're also not there to help their children. So, of course, they're not there. Well, you go out and do whatever you want then. Dad's not here. You can go and get up to mischief, or you can do this, or you can do that. And a very good friend of mine, he's a police officer, and he works with youth off the street. And that's what he said. 90% of the time, man, it's because there's no father figure. Yeah. There's no father figure there to pull them in line and to teach them the actual way or the way forward, you know. And you see it more and more, man. The
statistics are just overwhelming.
It's crazy.
What happens when kids grow up without fathers,
absolutely,
whether it be their involvement in crime, their suicide rates, their employment rates, everything.
Attendance to church.
Yeah. Yeah, attendance to church. That's right. Yeah.
The dad's not there, man.
Way more so than the mother.
Yeah. You know, And it's unfortunate. My dad never used to go to church on Sunday, or he just wouldn't go to church.
Yeah.
And my mum would try and push us to go, and we're like, oh no, Dad didn't go. We're not going to go.
Yeah.
That was the way
But
out.
it's interesting when you flip it, you don't actually have as much of a problem.
Yeah.
Even with like the outcomes of kids in single father households
Yeah.
are almost in line with the outcomes of kids with both of their parents around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it just shows just how vital. Obviously, we're not undermining the
definitely not.
importance of the
Definitely
mother,
not,
but it just shows just how
more
important the father is. I think the other issue with the migrants, though, as well, is that I think they tried to teach us masculinity based off the world that they knew.
Yeah.
They had no idea about this world. You know what I mean? They had no idea.
The first thing that comes to mind is like the shalhota or the shal.
Yeah, that's right.
Getting bashed by a thong. But,
yeah, that's right. Like
know.
in Lebanon, where we're both from, it's like if a kid said, "Oh, I'm going to the park," he's probably going to the park to play basketball.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some areas here, if you're going to the park, you can find yourself a prostitute, you can find yourself a drug dealer, you can find everything that you might be looking for. Yeah, exactly right.
Everything except the park.
Yeah,
but also,
they just don't know what world is out there. And I think the more you're present, I think I read a stat once where it's like parents on average spend 30 minutes a day with their kids outside of showers, dinner and all that.
Yeah.
And that's nothing.
So it's funny you say that because my son, obviously I've got two daughters. I've got a 1-year-old and I've got a 6-year-old. My 6-year-old, as you're aware of, she's got a very rare genetic disorder. She's got special needs. So she needs a lot of attention. So does my, obviously, 1-year-old. And then you've got my son who's smack bang in the middle, who doesn't get as much attention because both his sisters need more attention. So the other day I went and bought a scooter. So you see me covered in tattoos, 6'1", 110 kilos, scooting down the street with my son because I'm making sure.
Oh, you bought one for yourself?
Yeah, for myself. So now me and my son go scooting. No, man. Now me and my son go scooting now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I make sure to make that
Spend
time.
the time, yeah.
Because if you're not there, if you're not present, like all the money in the world, fantastic. But if you're not present there,
they will look elsewhere.
Absolutely,
that's the risk,
and this is what happens, man. And also what they learn from that, like you want to give your children everything, and that in and of itself is a big issue. Without struggle, all right, you don't understand how to deal with situations. You don't know how to deal with stress. So you see, like, this shit like safe spaces. Like, what the hell, bro? Safe space? Bro, my dad will bash the safe space out of me. You know what I mean? Like,
nowhere is safe if your dad's coming for you.
100%.
Yeah.
So but what I'm getting at is that we, and God bless them, they did so much and they didn't want to see their children struggle that they put them in, cotton wool.
Which only made things worse.
Exactly. Because now when shit hits the fan, they don't know how to deal with situations because they were always, covered in wool. They're always protected. And it's a big issue now, And I even see, like, it's people that are, my age or probably a little bit younger and a little bit older where divorce is happening. You're seeing a lot of that. Why? Because, it's all fun and games when you're single and then you get married and then put a kid in the works. Man, then stresses really start happening. And people don't know how to deal with those stresses. Why? Because they've had a silver spoon for so long. They've never really understood how to deal with stress.
They've been protected from the stresses.
Man.
Yeah.
100%. 100%, man. 100%.
Yeah. It's interesting because
that's my philosophy.
I agree with that, by the way. I agree with that because especially, we're both children of migrant parents. So I don't know if other communities are different, but I feel like because they were so traumatized by all the struggles, they probably dealt with the Civil War and whatnot.
Yeah.
They say, I don't want my kid
to struggle.
But then the question they need to answer is like, what is wrong with struggle?
Yeah.
And then they say, well, I struggled. And then you say, well, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with
100%.
you. You're strong, you're tough.
And understand how to deal with situations.
You know how to deal with situations.
Good work ethic.
Yeah.
They don't care. Like you say that, they work 7 days a week and they work 3 jobs.
There's nothing wrong with them.
There's nothing.
It's sad, yeah. I was blessed in that my parents are very against the sort of coddling mentality.
Yeah.
My dad was always about, responsibility as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
And my mum, was the same. They were always on the same page, etc. All important things. But many of our generation didn't really have that.
No way, man.
And I think you raise a good point about the divorces, because as soon as you're married, and that's something Mick once said, is when you're married, all of your flaws are amplified.
Absolutely, man.
And it takes a lot to work through some of those.
Yeah,
and if you've grown up in an environment where you're told, hey, is that too hard? You can stop now. Are you tired? You can rest. You can sleep in.
There's none of that, man.
I met a girl, I think it was in Lebanon, and her mum said, look, my daughter doesn't even know how to cook an egg. And she was proud of it. So when she's married, she can learn. But for now, I look after my daughter. And I just thought, man, God help whatever guy. And it's not for the egg, but
God help your daughter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
2-minute noodles will only last so much.
Yeah.
And it's a big, bad world out there. And if you haven't got a, thick skin, if you haven't learned, man, and that's why I said earlier about, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
How do you teach your son that? I don't know. He's still young. It's not.
So for me, I'll tell you how I learned.
Yeah,
I learned by getting punched in the head when I was doing MMA. I used to sit there laughing. The people used to look at me going, "Why is this guy laughing at me?" Because for me, I'd really analyze the situation. Like, I'm comfortable in this situation. It doesn't really faze me. I know they're not going to kill me. It might be a different story if I was in a life or death situation.
Yeah,
but God willing, I'll get my son into martial arts. And what that will do will also amplify and prepare him to also be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I had a friend of mine once say to me, "Oh, my daughter's getting bullied." I said, "I'll send her to martial arts." He's like, "Oh, no, I don't want my daughter to, fight." I said, "No, man, it's got nothing to do with fighting. It's understanding that she can be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. So if these bullies try and bully her, she knows how to stand up for herself."
Yeah. It's actually about confidence as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because 100%. Those who are trained in martial arts are a lot more confident.
Yeah.
And confident people are not that they win fights. They don't even get into fights.
Absolutely.
They're less likely to get into the fight at all.
I say to you, man, you take yourself out of that situation, bro.
Yeah.
You take yourself out of those situations. Do not put yourself, and that's what you come to learn. Do you know why I learned that? Because, man, some of the dudes I used to train with, I swear to God, you'd look at them walking down the street and think, "Oh, I'll bash this guy." Bro, that guy would be like a world title holder for, 3 different categories of martial arts. He would tie you in origami before you even knew what happened.
Yeah.
But when he walked down the street, he'd just walk and look at the floor.
Yeah.
He wouldn't look at anything.
Yeah.
So instantly people would have this, thought that, oh, he's weak. But that's why I'm a massive advocate for martial arts. Not for the, you learn, people will come in and this is no disrespect to football players, but a lot of football players would come into the gyms that we used to train at and think that they could come in and manhandle people. And they'd learn real quick a big spoon of humility, what it tastes like. They'd get pummeled, they'd get tied up real quick, and they'd be on the floor begging for, a tap out, essentially. Because it's funny. It's extremely funny, man. You see it happen. And like I said, and what that does to you and what it did for me was really made me understand that I don't want to put myself in these positions where things can happen, because you don't know who could be on the opposing side.
I was talking to a mate who started doing jiu-jitsu, and one of the guys at his gym is like a Australian heavyweight champion, just won ADCC Asia trials, and he said, "Francis, I was here for a week," and he said, "Oh, let's roll, you and I." And he's with a dead straight face. I think the guy's telling a joke.
Yeah.
And he said, "Francis, he folded me like a napkin." And I couldn't stop laughing. He said, "Don't laugh, Francis. He could have," I can't say it because this will go on YouTube.
Yeah.
"He could have graped me. Take away the G."
Yeah.
He said he folded me like a napkin, and he could have violated me, and there's nothing I could have done. And I just think it's crazy.
I got choked out. I got choked out by someone's foot being under my neck. I was sprawled out like a cat, like a starfish, with their foot here, and they're just cranking on my neck. So I couldn't even say to him, like, I was out. I couldn't even put my hands on the floor. I was out. I'm like looking at him, trying to wink at him, like, "Can you stop now?"
Yeah.
I can't even breathe.
Yeah.
And this guy was a quarter of my size.
Yeah.
Quarter of my size. Man, tiny little dude. And it happened, so often. But like I said, these guys were just really comfortable. They were really confident. They weren't proud. They wouldn't walk around like, "Oh, look at me." They'd be a quarter of our size.
Yeah.
But
because it's almost like once you've learnt it and you're confident, you don't feel the need to try and show people anymore. Like, you know, in your heart,
100%.
if push comes to shove, you can look after yourself.
Absolutely, 100%.
But you also know you want to avoid that situation because someone will get hurt.
The consequences.
Yeah. I watch some of these guys on YouTube. I don't know if you've watched like Jocko Willink and those guys. Yeah.
Nut jobs.
Yeah, right. And someone said to him, "Oh, what's the best way to win a fight?" He's like, "You turn around and run."
Yeah, absolutely.
And this guy's you've seen him. He's a unit. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He was a
I think he was a
Marine
SAS or something. Yeah.
He was a Marine.
Yeah.
So this is the
dude
guy
can
that
hold himself.
This guy's taken lives, right? And he says, "You turn and you run."
Absolutely.
As long as they haven't got you on the floor, you can run. And it's like, that's so funny. The mindset of the...
It's funny you say that because I was watching a friend of mine, Mark, was showing me this YouTube clip where there's like, 5 of the best fighters per se, just to keep it short. And they had to do, like this guy was a black belt in this guy's a black belt in that. So really well, good fighters. But what they did, they said, okay, your fight now is going to be on a bus. So you have to sit down next to someone and a fight breaks out on a bus. So now they start like fighting on the bus and they soon realize that it's not as simple as, I'm a really high rated fighter. I can fight in any situation. But now I've completely forgot where I was heading with that. Anyway.
The whole turnaround and run.
Yes, correct. There we go. So they did another scenario where someone had a knife. It wasn't a knife, it was like a texter. And every time they got hit with the texter, it would show you how many times they got stabbed.
Yeah.
So one of the guys won the bout by when they said, okay, bing, the alarm's gone off, they expected him to engage in the fight. But what he did was actually turn around and ran off. And he actually won.
Because he didn't have any.
Because he did that.
Yeah.
So they said, well, that's your first point of call is to vacate the situation. If you can get away and you're not put in a position where you need to fight, then don't be there.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I was like, what the hell's this guy doing? He's like ran off, and it legit, that these are like world-class fighters and they know that too. Like you're talking about Jocko, same thing, man. Like if you don't have to be there, don't be there. Yeah. And it comes back to me what I was saying earlier about, not putting yourself in these positions. That's why when I smoke cigars, I'm not pushing that point, but I want to be in a quiet, calm setting.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in an area where it's like, music cranking. I can't hear the conversation I'm trying to have with my, my brother or my sister or whoever it may be. Yeah. And that's, it's the world's evolving really quick now, man. It's
almost like if you've got a problem with your son where he's fighting a lot, the best thing you can do is put him in martial arts.
Man, 100%.
So he can actually learn and he'll fight less because
I'm telling
of it.
you.
Yeah.
I swear to God, if you're, I always thought, man, if my son was a bully or did something like that stupid, man, I would, the first thing I would do is put him straight into a gym. So go be a bully now.
Yeah.
Go be a bully now. All right. In an environment where it's it's in a safe environment. You want to be a hero. You want to be that big guy. Go be a big guy in the gym. And I'll sit there and laugh. I would sit there and laugh because you'll get served. Man, I used to see it all the time. I was training 6 days a week, man. You'd see a lot of these guys come in, thinking that they're this or that or whatever and try and put it, like they just get, a small guy to go train with him.
Yeah.
And it would just crush his pride. And that's what sometimes.
That's what you need.
Absolutely. Yeah. I never forget, man. Small Asian dude. He was probably a quarter of my size. Guy was like a string bean. I swear to God, this guy was skinny. You think, man, I'll manhandle this guy. Doesn't matter. I'll walk straight through him. They go ding. All I remember is being in an armbar, laying flat on my back. It happened like that, man. The guy was a gymnast, so he wasn't afraid, and he was very, very flexible. He jumped at me from like a meter away, tied me up, and I was flat on my back.
Wow.
And it just gives you that big spin of humility, like be humble.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who you're standing in front of. You don't know. You think, oh, I can do this or I can do that. Man, I could tell you 1,000 stories about guys like that, that are just badasses in their own right, and they're not out trying to prove anything to anyone.
Well, because they've actually proven it to themselves by that stage.
100%. They're getting up early in the mornings. They're running. Discipline, consistency. Like all this stuff that we lack, man. Because again, and I say it like it's a first world problem, because we're so comfortable.
Yeah.
We're so comfortable being comfortable all the time. The internet's down. Oh, it's the worst thing ever. Is it really? We've been so tuned to be like that.
Well, COVID's a good example of what happens to people when they're not used to certain situations or discomfort or isolation or whatever it may be.
And very, very sad. As soon as you said that, man, one of the most horrific things, I was still working at the time, and I was actually working at World Square in the city, and man, haram, like, God bless their soul, people were jumping off buildings, man, you know, and the building manager would have to go and like say, yep, like it's another casualty, you know. That's sad, crazy, man. Crazy. Big, big issues with mental health and being isolated like that. And yeah, very, very scary, man. Very scary that these situations can evolve really quickly. And that's what I always say, man, surrounding yourself with positive people. I've been very blessed to have really beautiful, really amazing people around me. My wife's incredible, man. My wife is she's a soldier. She's an absolute soldier. She's she's the rock of our family. And as I mentioned earlier, my daughter's got a rare genetic disorder. Man, if it wasn't for my wife, I
wanted to get to your wife, but why don't we crack this open? I'm going to fix this light that just went out. We're still running on a budget here at the Francis Tamer Show. Do you want to crack this open? And
no, I'll let you do it. Go for it.
This is a fancy bottle, man.
Yeah, it's based off the copper steel that they actually they use to make these bourbons. So it's a really beautiful, unique bottle, and it makes a statement. It makes a real beautiful statement. So color of it's really nice. But yeah, definitely. I hope you enjoy it.
Did I put too much there?
No, you'll be right.
Yeah.
You guys will understand if he's put too much, you'll start slurring.
Yeah, you'll know. You'll know if the tone of this conversation changes very quickly.
That's funny, mate. I've got to try.
I couldn't even see how much I was pouring, to be honest. Just drink what you can. I'm just going to fix this light.
Yeah.
Just a second. So this is a bourbon, you said?
Yes, that is. Yeah.
Will it
bourbon.
Give this a go.
So just,
cheers, man.
Thank you very much.
Having you, brother.
Thanks for having me on. Put hairs on your chest?
Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff.
When you drink it, always have a little sip and let it sort of coat your tongue. So don't just swallow it straight away, because if you swallow it straight away, you don't actually get to taste anything. All you feel is the burn. So if you let it sort of mix in with some of your saliva, and let it roll over your tongue, you'll get to pick up profiles. Start picking up, so you hear them talking about like vanilla or caramel or all these other flavor profiles. That's where all that comes from.
Yeah.
And then as you've sort of finished tasting it, you've got taste receptors in your nose as well. So how we say, this is a piece of chocolate by scent without tasting. So you can actually tell what it is by your nose, and it's a thing called retrohaling. So once you've had your sip and you've still got those vapors, you blow out your nose.
Blow out.
Yeah. And then again, you'll pick up even more profiles. And this is how people start profiling, cigars. They say, I'm tasting pecans, or I'm tasting almonds or hay or whatever it may be. It's understanding your palate, and that's how you start understanding your palate, by doing those little exercises.
Right. So that gulp I just took, I completely bastardized the whole process. I just took a gulp.
That's why even when I did it, like, you probably looked at me like, why is he smelling it for?
Yeah.
So, excuse me. Yeah, smelling it first. You smell it enough without it burning your nasal cavity from the high alcohol content. So you're close enough when you can smell the profile of the whiskey, scotch, gin, whatever it may be, without burning your nasal cavity. So, because obviously if I stick my nose right in there, all I'm going to get is like this big hit of alcohol. So I don't want that, because I can't smell anything. So, and each person's different. So for me, I can smell that as very pleasant. So very sweet. You can smell like very pleasant, very sweet out of it. You know what I mean? And then obviously when you drink, just have a small sip, let it roll around your mouth a bit. You can taste it. And then obviously retrohale on the finish. So that's typically what we do. It doesn't have to be like that all the time, but if you want to start, learning how to, truly appreciate these things, there's little steps that you start going.
So how did this all start? The cigar, whiskey, because you've got a business, right? Like you have an online store.
Yeah, we do.
You sell cigars and whiskey.
Yep.
How did this all start?
Again, man, like I said, it was the biggest thing was when we were in Lebanon. Just the whole relaxation, stopping and making sure that we
ask again
Yeah.
for the edit. We're having some technical difficulties, as you do. So how did this all happen? The interest in cigars and whiskey and the decision to start a business?
Yeah, so that there are two questions in that, what you just asked me, because there's two different situations, and I'll tell you both of them. But first and foremost is obviously when we're in Lebanon. Again, or, you know, the need to have this here so we can slow down. And as I mentioned earlier, my brother had the tattoo parlor. In the back part of the tattoo parlor, opened up a little cigar lounge, like an internal room of probably good for about 10 or 12 people. And it's crazy, man, because I've met some insanely incredible people through cigars. So yeah, that's essentially where it started from. Started when we were in the Middle East, and you know, I brought that whole idea back here. And then at that point, it was just an idea. And then my daughter, who I mentioned earlier, when she was younger, when she was probably, you know, just early parts of one, she spent a lot of time in hospital. So we're always in hospital. Poor little thing, you know, would have shocking high temperatures, 42 degrees. It was absolutely scary, man, scary shit. And I obviously, out of necessity, I needed to make sure I still had an income. And because we were in hospital so often, I couldn't be present at work. I couldn't make an income. So I decided to make an online store. And that's where the birth of the store happened. You know, we've got our online liquor and cigar store. And, you know, we've sort of been tinkering with it for the last couple of years. And now, you know, off the back of COVID and all the other stuff that was happening, we're now looking to try and do more like events, whiskey pairings, or, you know, gin pairings or wine pairings and stuff like that. And, you know, do the whole introduction. Some people go, like, I sat down with a gentleman yesterday, very, very, you know, great person, amazing person, very humble person. And he's like, I love whiskey, but I hate cigars. And he's like, my first experience with cigars. And I said, as soon as you say that to me, I know straight away.
Is that a bad experience?
You've had a bad experience because someone has given you,
you
know, a terrible cigar. So, you know, it's like this, bourbon. If, for instance, someone's never had bourbon before, very rarely would I put a neat glass for them. Because that's the first best way to turn them off drinking this.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd put a dash of Coke or something, not with this particular bottle.
Yeah.
You know, I'd get something, you know, mix worthy. So, you know, like Jim Beam and, you know, those sorts of stuff. But, you know, and you introduce them. It's like a coffee. You wouldn't go and give someone a double espresso straight off the bat.
Yeah, that's good point.
You know, you need to find where their palate is and, you know, understand what their capabilities are and what, you know, their thresholds are. You know, a lot of people would never ever be able to smoke. You know, I could never smoke a cigar that big. And then fast forward, you know, a couple of months, they're smoking cigars twice that size. You know, because they just absolutely love the process and the, you know,
and they learn how to do it right, so they can enjoy
ritual of it. Yeah, you know, and it's like I said, you pull this out and you admire every part of it. You admire the construction. Like, you know, these have passed through hundreds of hands before they get to this. You know, from the seed being, you know, planted, and then obviously they've got to grow the plant, and then they've got to care for it, and they've got to pick the leaves, and then they've got to obviously set the leaves aside and let them mature and age and ferment, you know. So a cigar is essentially just a natural product. They literally grow a leaf, pick them, put them in a big warehouse, let them ferment, roll them, and then that's the finished product. You know, so
yeah, right. So it's organic, it's healthy, it's good for you.
Yeah, it's like lettuce.
Yeah, it's like lettuce. You're just smoking lettuce. That's all. I remember when we went to your place the other day and you were offering scotch.
Yeah,
I was just like, yeah, I'll have whatever. And you said, Francis, are you going to put Coke in your scotch just so I know which scotch to get? Yeah,
it's
you don't want to waste good scotch.
Even my wife, like, it's funny because I'll always pull out 2 bottles.
Yeah.
Like, I go to my wife, I was like, oh, what are you drinking today? She's like, I'll have a Scotch and Coke with you. I said, okay.
Yeah, you can have this bottle, yeah.
You know, she goes, you always pull out 2 bottles. And I'm like, well, listen, I'm not going to pull out good stuff that's meant to be profiled and, you know, you want to taste.
Just to pour Coke over it.
To pour Coke over it, because you're not going to taste anything. Like, if you just want to have a drink just to unwind and relax, fantastic. We can do that too. But we're not going to go, you know, like, not going to go get like the most premium water and go and pour cordial into it. You know, like it defeats the purpose of having like this most incredible premium water. And it's the same with, you know, with bourbons or whiskeys or gins or whatever it may be. And even like yesterday, I was at a whiskey event yesterday, and I was speaking to a manufacturer from the US. They do like this incredible tequila, and I was telling Vanessa about it, my wife, and she's like, "Oh, tequila." And I'm like, "Yeah." So that's the first thing everyone says because everyone's had a bad experience on tequila, but they've had a bad experience on bad tequila.
Yeah, right.
So, and it's like good whiskey. Good whiskey isn't designed to be smashing down drinks after, one after another. It's like you literally pour one case or one glass and you savor it and you enjoy it and you appreciate every little fine detail of it. And it's the same with good tequila. You sip on it, you're not shotting it.
Yeah.
And there's a massive, like I said, you mentioned you asked me, where did it start from? It's that curiosity as well. Once you start sort of diving into it, man, there's massive amounts of information to learn.
Yeah.
Like it's not just cutting it, burning the hell out of the cigar and smoking it. Like there's so much that goes into enjoying this, and, as I said, that my wife and I are trying to do some masterclasses or start trying to do, events to educate people on it, Because
bring them in on it, and so they can experience it the way you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great fun. It's really, really good fun. Good way to build community. Guys or girls, it doesn't matter. There's different cigars for different people. And there's not one cigar that fits every part of the day. So, and same with say palate. Like I was talking about palating before. It's everyone's palate's different. Not everyone loves the same food. Not everyone enjoys the same drinks. Not everyone enjoys the same cigars. So it's it's experimenting and finding that and understanding, those sorts of things. So
yeah, look, I have a confession. I've never tasted tequila before.
Really?
Never tasted it. Yeah.
Have you had a Long Island iced tea? No. Okay.
No, I've just heard of it. Honestly, I'm not really much of an alcohol. If I tell you what alcohol I usually drink, you're probably going to think less of me.
Oh, never.
You will. You will.
Okay, tell me.
VB.
I think extremely low of you now. Extremely.
That's as far. That's as progressed as I've gotten.
As cultured.
Look, I'm from Penrith, so VB's the way. But honestly, like growing up, didn't really drink much. My family weren't big drinkers, and then as I got a bit older, every now and then I'd have a beer, and I just really enjoy bitter taste.
I'm glad that this is, God willing, the start of many beautiful bottles and collections for you. Because honestly, man,
it's actually really nice.
Like I said,
really enjoyable.
It's not about smashing down drinks. It's definitely not. It's about absolutely taking the time to stop and enjoy.
And that's the only way I've ever enjoyed alcohol, to be honest. I've never like smashed down drinks and, so this is good. The only issue is, and this is something that Mick's done to me, is you guys encourage expensive hobbies and I can't resist them. Like, it's watches with Mick.
Absolutely.
And
that's far worse than me.
Yeah, it is far worse. It is far worse. Watches is disastrous, But this is I really appreciate this, man.
No.
It's actually really nice as well. The way my second sip was as you told me to do it, and it was a completely different experience altogether.
Absolutely, man. And
the
like
first one was like I was drinking actual acid.
Yeah. And what you can also do, Jim Murray, I watched a video. Jim Murray's like a sommelier or a really well-known whiskey personnel, and you could always put like 1 or 2 drops of water in your glass. If it's too high in ABV, you can lower the ABV, and what that also does is
what's ABV?
The alcohol content. So this is 47%, so it's pretty high up in alcohol content.
47.
Yeah, so it's pretty high. Typical bottle would be around about 38 to 40. So this definitely, it's pushing up closer to 50, which is it's high.
Is this a standard drink here, or is it more? Or
that'd probably be a bit more.
Is it? Ooh.
Yeah. yeah, probably a bit more than a standard drink. So,
didn't even realize how much went in there.
Yeah,
we'll take it easy.
No, that's it. But yeah, it's it's understanding and learning the process of it to really enjoy, what you've got in front of you. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's where our business started from. The other business, obviously, I'm a builder as well. I've been in the trade industry for 20-something years, but it was out of necessity. Like I said, when my daughter was born, we had those early complications where we were in and out of hospital all the time. So we looked at another means of making money and just being able to live essentially. So yeah, it's
And did it take off quite quickly in terms of getting some income in, or has it been a slow grind?
It was slow. It was crazy because it was around when the big C happened, the online industry just went crazy, and even cigars went. Man, it was like a massive boom because people had
just sitting
so
at
much more
home.
time.
Yeah.
We talk about having time. Well, when that happened, everyone had shitloads of time. So, but I just didn't have the finances at the time to stock up and buy a whole heap of stuff, and had I, excuse me, it would have been completely different. So,
and you mentioned your wife, and I said I wanted to come back to her. Anytime I've spoken to you and you bring up your wife, you obviously feel quite strongly about her, which you'd hope so. She is your wife, but you've obviously been through a lot. You guys have been through a lot as a family. When did Vanessa come into the picture? When did you meet her? So obviously you had sort of come back onto this path you're on now, doing things a little bit better, and I'm guessing at some stage you met her then?
I met her at church.
Yeah.
So I was very blessed. It's a crazy story because, excuse me, Vanessa and I are born 10 days apart.
Oh, right.
Born in the same hospital.
Who's older?
I'm older.
By 10 days.
Yeah, I'm older by 10 days. But we're on the same ward at the same hospital at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy. And we both lived essentially a few minutes from each other. She actually lived 5 houses from my brother. So,
wow. Growing up?
Yeah. So it's crazy. So, it's just nuts when we sat down, we thought about it. I was like, shit, that's crazy. But, so V, I met her. We've been married. My anniversary was actually yesterday.
Congratulations. So, I saw that. That's awesome, man.
So 7 years.
That's awesome news.
We've been together for roughly about 9 years. And yeah, man, it's been crazy. And it's paramount to have someone who you can gel with, someone who understands you. You're always learning. You're always learning about each other. Different situations will make you understand again something or learn something again about your partner. And yeah, I'm very, very blessed, man. Like I said, I'm very, very blessed to have a wife like my wife. She's a massive advocate for our daughter. She will not leave a stone unturned.
Your daughter, Gabby, right?
Gabby, yeah. All my children, but primarily, like I said, for Gabriella needs a lot of medical attention and stuff like that. So,
what is it Gabby has? So she's your eldest, right?
Yeah, correct. She's 6. So little Gabs is 6 years old. Beautiful, bubbly little girl. She has a very rare genetic disorder. It's called Kleefstra syndrome. So what that is
Kleefstra?
Yeah, Kleefstra syndrome. It's a rare genetic disorder. She's got a micro deletion on her chromosome number 9. So the slightest little deformity, essentially, on her chromosome number 9, and that affected her immensely. So she's nonverbal. They said that she would never walk. She has gastrointestinal issues. She has some other complications. But saying that she'd never walk, and man, she is my rock. Like, she is someone that teaches me so much on a daily basis. It's not funny. And the determination and the never give up, man, she teaches me that every single day. And to all the people that said that she would never walk, they can all eat shit, because she's literally walking now. She's walking upstairs and doing all the things that they said that she would never do, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And hats off to my wife again, because she pushed and pushed and pushed, to all the therapy, all the appointments, all the sort of stuff that, she does on a regular basis, man, is,
I feel like even as a father, obviously, you'd be severely impacted watching your child struggle in the way they have.
Man.
But I just imagine for a mother, you know,
completely different.
Completely different. And
so different, man.
It would take an abnormal amount of strength.
Yeah,
I think, to be able to push through.
Yeah. And you, it's funny because you go through certain things, your circle that you thought you had thins out real quick. So it goes from being that big to like
a lot smaller than you thought, right?
Yeah. Because when the complications happen and when shit hits the fan, like, you really understand who's there for you and who really understands your situation, or who really wants to understand your situation. So to put in perspective how complex my daughter's situation is that she's one in 250 million chance of having what she has.
Oh, wow.
So she's about one of 400 in the world.
400 in the world.
Yeah. So extremely, extremely rare, extremely complex, and this is why when I say we spend a lot of time in hospital, because you'd go to the hospital and they're like, she's got what? and they'd go away, they'd Google it, come back, and they go, okay, we'll be back, and they'd leave you in the hospital bed for 8 or 10 hours, while they try and work out what to do.
What to do next. Wow.
And we got to a point, Matt, where we were about to move to the US, because in America, they've got a Boston Children's Hospital. They're leading the way for Kleefstra syndrome and for research and development and a whole heap of stuff like that. So my wife and I...
So they're dedicated to researching a disease that affects 400 people in the world.
Yeah, man. And this is a big issue because what you just said is that dedicated, it's finances as well.
Mm.
The government don't want to splurge money on that.
No.
And we've had this said to us. We've fundraised and they said, listen, man, unfortunately, we don't want to put money towards that because there's so few people that are affected by this condition. So it's, my wife and I were literally about to pack our stuff up, sell our house and move to the US. And it was in that time that we had spoken to some people in the US, and one of the head doctors who's leading the way in the US is Dr. Maya Chopra, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She is an Australian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Randwick. And prior to her leaving to go to America, she actually started a clinic here. So with some doctors who specialize in Kleefstra syndrome and similar,
Yeah, I'm guessing they also look at related illnesses.
Absolutely.
Right?
So you got like Angelman syndrome. There's a whole heap of other syndromes that are very similar to what my daughter has. They affect slightly different, but fundamentals are very, very similar. So, so just about to move there, spoke to this doctor. She goes, no, go to Randwick, speak to this doctor. And we've met a doctor there named Dr. Emma Palmer. Man, she is one of the most incredible people in the world, who's so passionate to really helping and helping families. And she's got a big understanding for the struggles that we go through as parents of, who have got special needs children.
Is her specialty like that same area?
Is
Kleefstra and related?
Oh, yeah, genetics. So genetics. So she's got a very, very good understanding of genetics. So I think she's currently now, and when I say now, like the end of May, she's physically in, I'm going to say it's not Switzerland. Anyway, that part of the world with Dr. Kleefstra. So the doctor who actually
named it.
Yeah, who uncovered this genetic disorder, she's physically with that doctor now.
Oh, wow.
So as of the end of May 24.
Dr. Emma Palmer?
Yeah.
And so she's your sort of main doctor at the moment.
She's the head of the genetics clinic. So my wife and I, obviously being the people who we are, we don't sort of just sit back and relax. So we've been pushing. And we opened up a clinic, which is the first of its kind here in Australia and the second of its kind in the world at Randwick Children's Hospital to specialize, to cater for children who have got those rare genetic disorders. So we've got a nurse practitioner who's on there who understands exactly the needs of these families. Because
how many families are involved?
There's about 20 families that go to this clinic now.
And how did you guys, you say you guys pushed for it, like you fundraised for it?
Yeah. Wow. So we're very blessed, man. Our community is absolutely incredible. We asked and they pushed and pushed and pushed, and people came and they donated, whether it be $1 to, X amount of dollars, man. And we were able to raise, stupid amounts of money. And that put us in a position where they just snap their necks all of a sudden and go, who the hell are these people and where'd they come from? How are they able to raise this amount of money in short amounts of time? And again, because we're super blessed to have amazing, people around us who are willing to help our daughter. And so many other families are benefiting from it now too. So we're extremely blessed to be a part of that. And now we're, also lobbying the government to try and get more funding because there's certain equipment that the hospitals don't have, here in Sydney, but every other state has it. You just sort of scratch your head thinking, how the hell does every other state, have this particular machine, but Sydney doesn't? So we're lobbying health
20
ministers.
families is a lot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to always look at everything in the grand scheme of things, but like each family is its own family, and there's a child affected or a brother affected, and a
whole family, man.
The whole family is affected, and their community is affected.
Absolutely, 100%, man. And it's a big thing. It's a very, very big thing. My daughter's incredible, man. Like I said, she inspires so many people. Just little things like taking a step from one step where she never did it before. and she's doing that now. And we were recently in America, in Louisiana, and we took my daughter over there for some specialized treatment, brain stimulation, some other bits and pieces that is very, very unique and only unique to that one particular doctor who's the founding doctor. There's other doctors around the world who he's teaching, but to get the full diagnosis or the full analysis of what my daughter needed, we needed to go to that particular doctor. And the amount of stuff that he did for her while we were over there, the treatment, the therapy was, man, it's incredible.
And you saw results?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're in America, as I mentioned, my daughter was told that she never walked. She's been walking now, thank God, for a couple of years, but she's never actually walked upstairs. When I was in America, I was unwell, had a flu, whatever, and I was sitting up on a set of stairs. I was up about 4 or 5 stairs up, and I was just doing something on my phone. And I looked down and my daughter's there whinging because me and my daughter are very, very tight. We're like extremely tight. Wherever I am, you can sure bet that my daughter will be right beside me. And she was cracking it because I had a cold. I couldn't pick her up. I couldn't carry her. I couldn't do anything with her for a couple of days. And so she was eager to come to me. And I'm just sitting there thinking, sweet, we'll see what, where this leads us. So she really wants to come to me. She'll come to me.
Yeah.
And sitting up on the stairs, and man, next thing I knew, she turned sideways and she grabbed the hand railing and she started stepping up the stairs to come up to me. And it was just mind blowing.
And that was while you're still in the US?
Yeah. So this is on the second week of her therapy treatment. So it was incredible, man. Absolutely amazing. Like to say these things that people would say that she would never do, and see her actually push through and do it, actually teaches me so much, like perseverance. You need to push through. We can't give up. It's incredible.
It's the interesting thing is when usually we see people. By the way, I've given up on these lights, so if the recording's a bit dim or whatever, we'll wait till our budget goes up a little bit. When we see certain people with illnesses, diseases, disabilities, I think it's like in our arrogance we think, poor thing, right? And we think, what can I do to help them?
Yep.
And I'm here to help them.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking about you. I'm speaking generally as people, right? Absolutely. And even myself.
Yeah.
And when you spend a little bit of time and you leave, you think, man, I came to help them, but they helped me
so much. Absolutely.
They've helped me.
Yeah.
I went to a camp when I was in high school. It's like for the school captains in our group of schools.
Yep.
Like 40 school captains. And then there was kids from the special needs school. And at some point, each captain had to present some sort of like, say, speech or some experience they've had or whatever. And then it came time for the special needs kids, but their teacher presented on their behalf.
Yep.
And she said, look, we often look at them as disabled and as people, as a society. They're disabled. They're lacking in many things.
Yep.
She said, but the people you're looking at right now are far more honest than we'll ever be.
Yeah.
You know if they like you. You know if they don't like you. You know what they're actually thinking.
Yeah.
They're never disingenuous. They're always authentic.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, she's so right.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Then that's really how it is.
You can learn so much from them.
You can learn so much.
Take the time to be in the presence of someone with special needs, or, man, it's, absolutely incredible.
And I feel like the last thing they need is our pity. It's like what they just need they just want to be
man, they're none the wiser.
Yeah.
For them, like my daughter, she gets up every day, does what she does because
whether you pity her or not,
she's none the wiser.
Yeah.
She doesn't know any different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you were to show pity to her, she'd be looking at you going, the hell's wrong with this person?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know any different.
Yeah.
I don't treat her any different.
Yeah.
I still yell at her if she's naughty or she misbehaves. She gets treated the same.
Well, as we spoke about before, you don't want to spoil. Doesn't matter who the kid is.
Not at all, man.
And they also deserve to live. Obviously, not everything's going to be normal, but you want to give them as normal a life as possible.
And I need to prove to my son as well, like there's no difference.
Yeah.
Like if she's being naughty, she needs to be disciplined for it.
You're all
if she
equal.
smacks her food out of my hand or something like that, she'll be obviously, she'll be taught that, no, you can't do that. That's not right. And because kids will pick up on that stuff too. I don't want my son to rebel at a later stage to think, mum and dad favored my sister over me. And
it will make him resent his sister as well.
But now, man, he's incredible with her.
Yeah.
Like even before I came here today, like went and grabbed her by a hand. He sat her on the couch. And then he laid on the couch and put his head on her tummy while, they're watching TV together and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking, man, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Goals for your kids, man, literally, I have like I have this like conflicting situation where I think, man, I'm so blessed. And then I instantly think about the dudes that I used to hang out with.
Yeah.
And thinking, man, harum.
Yeah.
Like,
what are they missing as well? Yeah.
These guys are going to be old when they're out. And what have they lost, man? Over what?
Yeah.
And that's what when I talk to people now, I talk to young guys nowadays, man. I said, like, listen, consequences. Just understand consequences. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the biggest thing you need to understand. Consequences for everything that we do.
How did you find the sort of reaction of people around you? Obviously, with the situation, like speaking about pity and how people react and how people treat you or treat your daughter, were there certain reactions that made it really difficult for you, and were there certain reactions that are a lot more helpful? Because as the family, like you and your wife, obviously carrying this load. As you said,
absolutely.
your daughter's none the wiser. So
some people just have no idea.
Yeah,
they're just dumb.
Just ignorant.
I can just say, not even ignorant, they're just dumb.
Yeah.
People just say dumb shit, man. You just scratch your head thinking like, man, I wish I could punch you in the head.
Yeah.
Honestly, it probably wouldn't do it wouldn't help other than just relieve that a little bit of, frustration that I have with you. Like, my daughter's got a very weak immune system. So we have to be very careful where we go.
Yeah.
Again, we have to pick and choose where we come and go because, for us, a sniffly nose means, Gabby can end up in hospital for 2 weeks and then she's susceptible to catching whatever else is in hospital. The other issues that are in, other diseases and shit that's around hospitals. So it's the last place we want to be. And then you have people say to me, oh, Simon, you just got to get over it. You just have to let your daughter, interact with everyone. And I'm thinking.
As if she's like any other kid going to daycare.
Man, seriously.
Yeah.
You haven't been what we've been through.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the struggles that my daughter had, like she'd have a temperature for 4 days straight, she won't drink. We're forcing water into her mouth. Like, you have to drink. You have to drink. We've stripped the clothes off her. And then you have dumb shits who just say to you, oh, you just got to, stop, wrapping her up in cotton wool. I'm like, man, there's a difference between cotton wool and there's a difference between trying to protect you. Give your children the, okay, no worries, go play on the M4. It's all good. Go play cricket on the M4. If it's all the same, let them play cricket. Go out and play cricket on the road, no problem. Okay, go play cricket on the M4. It's a road, isn't it? Still going to be cars
That's
there.
a good analogy. So that's like the equivalent analogy almost for Gabby is like, for any other kid, it's like playing in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
But for her, it's like playing on a highway.
Yeah, go play on the M4.
Yeah.
And that's, people just are ignorant, man. They just don't understand. They say stupid shit like that. Or they say to me, oh, how come your son doesn't go to daycare? I'm thinking, man, do you think I want to deprive my son of going to daycare?
Yeah.
Think I don't want him to have that social interaction? Of course I do. But I've got to weigh up.
Because if he brings something home,
course,
it can
and this
really
is the
affect
issue that we had. We'd send my son to daycare. He'd get sick. He'd come home, wipe his sister out. She'd end up in hospital. And then obviously she needs consistent therapy. Like, to get to where she is today is not because we're just thinking, oh yeah, fantastic, she got to where, man, my wife busts her ass every freaking day to get her to appointments and to get her to consistent therapy to make sure that she is where she is today. There's a lot of families, man, who don't do that stuff. They literally do not do that. They won't take their children to therapy. They won't take their children to, physio or to OT or to speech.
They just leave them be.
And, they're wondering, oh, well, I wonder why my son isn't progressing forward. And, man, haram, some people just don't have it or they just don't understand. But in saying that, that's how we're very, very fortunate to get to Gabby where she is today. So then to be negligent and then say, okay, we'll just send my son to daycare because, it's his right to be able to go there. But as soon as he comes home, man, it causes massive other issues for us. And it's very, very conflicting for us. For me and my wife, it's a battle that we have all the time in ourselves, thinking that are we depriving our son? But it's very, very hard. It's a very, very tricky situation to be in.
I've got many nieces and two of them go to preschool, daycare, whatever now. And like the last 4 weeks, there's been just illness cycling. And they've got two other sisters, so there's 4 girls.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of been doing the rounds.
Yeah, yeah.
But the worst it gets is, last night she just didn't sleep and had a fever.
Yep.
Today she's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like in your case, it's, oh no, we went to hospital and we're there for 4 days.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Man,
that's worlds apart.
And that impacts you for financially.
Yeah.
And then you got grubs, and I'll say grubs, man, because it blows my mind. where, oh, my daughter's got a fever, but I'll just dose her up with Panadol and I'll send her to school anyway.
Yeah.
What about, like, okay, I get it. I get you need to go do what you need to do or whatever your situation may be. And everyone's situation is completely different, but doing that's completely negligent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Dosing your kid up and sending them, and this is where we have to be very careful. My son's in that same environment, that same person, he catches whatever that other child has, brings it home to Gabby. It's a completely different situation, man. Completely different
Does
situation.
Gabby go to a specific school or just therapy at the moment?
Yeah, just therapy. So she starts school next year, God willing.
Is it a specific school?
Yeah, very, very specific school. So there's only about 90 kids in her school that she'll, God willing, be going to.
90 or 9?
90. 90. So that's from K to 12.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So, it's not very many kids at all. And obviously she'll be exposed to a lot of stuff then, but we're just praying, man, from now till then that we can try and get her immune system.
I guess just every day you're just weighing up the risk, almost day by day.
That's it, man. That's literally all
that's tough,
is.
Man.
It is massively, man. The burden, the stress that my wife and I both carry, and especially my wife, man, it tests you each and every day.
Yeah.
Like I say, I'm comfortable in uncomfortable positions. When my daughter's sick, man, I'm a completely different person. It's so freaking hard because the possibilities of shit hitting the fan real quick is very, very possible. And it's scary.
And it just goes 0 to 100 instantly.
She's nonverbal. So how do you know what's wrong with her? If I'm not feeling well and I can't tell you what I'm feeling, how do you understand?
Couldn't imagine, man.
You don't. It's extremely hard, man. Extremely hard. And people don't understand that. So when people say stupid stuff to you, like, oh, why don't you send your son to daycare? You're just like, you don't have the faintest idea. You've got no idea what we struggle with every single day to try and obviously help our daughter just stay the way that she is now. People have got a sniffly nose thinking, oh, it doesn't matter. It's nothing. And it is. In her situation, it definitely is. Definitely is. Because it can escalate real quick. So
what would you say is the right way to approach someone in your situation or your wife's situation in terms of sort of talking about it? For example, my belief has always been, don't assume you know what's going on if you haven't experienced it, especially.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So my view is most people have no issue if you're genuinely asking so that you can understand. Not to be nosy like half our community, the old Lebanese ladies who want to know the latest gossip, but like to genuinely understand how does it affect you? Just like we're talking now.
Yeah, but to be genuine. Yeah. That's it, like to say, hey, listen, this is incredible. I'd love to learn more. What is it? How is it? How does it affect Gabby? How does it affect you guys? Like being genuine in your approach is always massive. You know what I mean? Not assuming, oh, she's disabled or what's wrong with her. Saying something like that to a parent, oh, what's wrong with her is massively degrading. Yeah. Massively degrading. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with my daughter. She's perfectly fine in her own right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had a guy say it to me once. He's like, oh, what's wrong with your daughter? Is there something wrong with her? And I'm thinking, man, what I would love to do to you right now. Like you're degrading my daughter to the nth degree. Nothing. My daughter's absolutely perfectly fine in her own. Yeah. But being genuine, man. You really want to understand. You really want to know. There's so many people in our community, man, like in our circle, who love my daughter the way that we love her, and they want to see videos. They want to see updates of my daughter and what she's achieving and all that sort of stuff, because they want to physically be a part of her journey and her growth and stuff like that. And it's incredible, man. It's absolutely amazing. Like yesterday, my wife sent me a video of my daughter from her knees getting up to a standing position. First time she's ever done that. She's never done that before. Yeah. She's 6 years old, and a lot of stuff that we take for granted, just getting up and walking.
That's a huge milestone.
It's huge.
So she was on her knees.
Yeah,
and
correct.
She got to her feet.
They call it the frog position. She got into the frog position, and then she stood up to a standing position, then walked off. And even when she stood, I'll show you the video after this.
Yeah.
She had like a big smirk on her face. Like she was like really happy. That she had accomplished.
She recognized the milestone.
And that was freaking incredible. I was sitting down with some pretty influential people having having a lunch, and I saw that, and I was like, oh my God, I was like blown away on this table with like these, really important people. But at that point, man, I don't care. Like they're not as important as my little girl doing, that. And it was just mind blowing, man. Absolutely mind blowing to see those achievements. And like I said, there's so many people in our circle who love seeing that. It gives them the drive as well. And just to not take stuff for granted, because sometimes we do. As a people, we take a lot of stuff for granted. The fact that we can just go and do this or just go and do that and not even think about the consequences that it could have on someone else. And, and I hate to say this, like even we go to mass on Sundays, so many people will rock up to church on Sunday sick. They're coughing and sneezing. And for them, they might think it's nothing. But to us, it's a big issue.
Yeah, they could send your kid to hospital or worse. Yeah.
And then I'm unable to provide for my family because I'm spending a week in hospital because I've got 2 other children that my wife needs to attend to, or I need to attend to those 2 children. My wife needs to be in the hospital. It's people just don't understand. And we don't expect everyone to understand our situation. Our situation is extremely, extremely unique, but
I don't think you need people to understand it. You just need them to not go out of their way to make it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And just have some common decency. Like if you're not well, stay home, man. Simple. Like a lot of our closest family and friends do that now, where they may not have done that previously because they would have just not have even thought twice about the consequences. But now that they understand what it can actually do to someone like my daughter, for instance, they won't go and, go, oh, we'll just go to the supermarket. Doesn't matter if I've got a cold or I've got this or I've got that. And yeah, man, it's a very, very, very tricky situation to be in. Very, very tricky situation to be in. Very isolating at times. It can be very, very isolating because, when everyone else is catching up and all their kids are running amok together, we have to be careful. Again,
the big gatherings with all the families.
All the kids that are playing together and stuff like that. It's not, and we're not being helicopter parents where people say, oh, you're always just hovering over your daughter, you need to be careful. Our situation is completely different.
Well, there's so much more at stake in your situation. It's just,
absolutely.
Like I said, other kids, it's like, oh, he fell and he grazed his knee. It's like it's not the same.
In that, that's a great point to bring up. So if Gabby falls, she doesn't put her hands out.
She'll just fall flat.
So she's bashed her face up a handful of times.
Is that like a reactionary?
Yeah, so she just doesn't have the gross motor. She doesn't have those where she's got the capability to put her hands out to stop. She'll just fall, bang.
Oh, real. That's a huge risk.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Just hit her head on anything.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Trip hazards. That's why, man, like even when I'm doing work, I'm always super, super conscious of trip hazards. People are like, man, you get like a massive emphasis on that. I'm like, yeah, of course I need to. For me, it's programmed like that now.
Yeah.
If I'm doing work in someone's house, I try my absolute best to minimize any kind of trip hazard, whether it be a step into a house or into a bathroom or whatever it may be. Even just the site cleanliness, we do it because even at my house, you come into my house, it's just, there's not stuff laying around the floor because that reason. Gab can't navigate around those sorts of things like everyone else can. You see an obstacle, she won't notice it as much. She'll walk straight over it or she'll step on it and she'll trip. And that trip could be catastrophic for her.
So that means like in your house, you literally have to be mindful of mess all the time.
Man, absolutely. 100%. My wife's always on my son's case, like pick your cars up off the floor. Like you can't have your cars. You want your cars, put them on your table. Because your sister will step on them and she won't, like, man, I've got like ninja reflexes now.
Yeah.
You see me like throw my hand out and catch her because I'm watching the situation unfold.
You can see it happening before
and
it happens.
And I'm like, next year I've got my wife's looking at me like, what's that? That's like some Matrix shit.
Yeah. You've seen those videos of like dads catching their kids and stuff. Yeah.
So it's crazy, man. It happens. It literally happens because I'm watching, I'm analyze the situation and what's about to unfold. And it's just like real time. And you just like throw your hand out and you're catching Gab as she's like falling or she stepped on something. And it happened a handful of times, man. Absolutely. It could have been like really, really bad situation. She's busted her face up, smashed her lips. Even poor little darling, when we were in America, she fell or she tripped on a rug. So just even a rug, man. She kicked it and she grazed the whole side of her face. Again, it was a big carpet burn. She fell and like sort of fell on the carpet and just like smashed all the side of her face up. Poor little thing. So yeah, and that's now. That was only we were there 2 months ago.
We really do take a lot for granted.
Yeah, man.
And I watch my nieces fall over and it's almost like, with all respect, it's almost a joke. Like, oh, that's cute. She keeps falling over.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll do, and she fell on her bum, and
Yeah.
you tell her to sit down, and you move your hands, and she falls, and it's like we joke about it.
Yeah.
But like,
but everyone's situation is different, man. Like for me, I'm the same. Like I'll see my daughter, like my little 1-year-old, like she'll fall, and my wife run, oh, and I'm like, man, relax.
Yeah,
it's
a
all
different
good.
situation.
You know what I mean? Like, and also attending to that situation, like she'll sort of fall and she'll look, see what our reaction is.
Yeah.
If we're all screaming, going, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
then she'll start crying.
They freak out more.
You know, if we just play it down, we downplay it. She's like, "Oh, okay, I just had a fall," and she'll get back up again.
Yeah.
You know. So,
do you guys ever get like time to yourself much? You and your wife, like.
Yeah, we can. We're very blessed. My mother-in-law's a big, like she's incredible, man. I'm very blessed to have a mother-in-law. Like my mother-in-law, she helps a lot. And having support around you is a massive, massive help. So if anyone's got a family friend or a cousin or whoever it may be that has someone with special needs or a child, reach out to them, man.
Yeah.
Do as much as you can to try and help that people, because honestly, the struggles that they go through on a daily basis behind everything, behind closed doors, is 20 times worse than what you could ever imagine.
So your mother-in-law's sort of that main person who's really picked
absolutely,
up a
man.
lot.
Yeah, she's helped us heaps, man. Like especially early in the early stages where if I had to go to hospital, we had to get, because I'm a lot more calm. If Gab had to go under, I'd be in the hospital with her while, the procedure was happening, and Vanessa would be outside waiting, and, my mother-in-law would be at the house with our other children or my son or whoever it may be. So we're very, very fortunate to have that support network, and not everyone has that, man.
No, not everyone has it.
It's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Did she watch your son when you went overseas?
Yeah. So my son stayed here with my mother-in-law, specifically.
What a woman, man!
And
that's a real blessing.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, she's an absolute soldier, man. Absolutely. And man, some people just don't know how to deal with the situation.
Yeah,
really, people just don't know how to deal with the situation, and thank God she's just an incredible person, man. She really does pick up a lot of slack where we need it. Like last night, it was our wedding anniversary. She had been at my house at 8:00 in the morning. She didn't leave my house till 8:00 last night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She gave us some time to go have some dinner, come back home, and and kick back. And she waited and she sat there with our children.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, like I said, she understands our situation. She's been there for from the very beginning. She's seen like the good, the bad, the ugly, the incredibly ugly. She's been there, and she's helped us heaps, man.
And you guys must
very
have.
Fortunate.
I mean, you must have a lot of trust for her to be able to go for dinner with your wife and be at peace. Like your daughter,
man.
who means. I mean, obviously, all your kids.
Absolutely,
we never undermine. But
Gab's very different, man.
Needs a lot more attention.
Yeah, especially in the sense where she's nonverbal. That's where it's like you've got to understand her nonverbal keys. What does she want by what she's trying to do? You've got to try and understand that, and we understand that because we spend so much time with her.
Yeah,
and she's quick to let you know if you're not doing it quick enough. You know, like if I'm making breakfast for her in the morning, she'll come up and like yell at me and like start pulling on me, like hurry up. I'm like, right, man, I'm going as quick as I can. I'm not scared of many people, but I'm scared of this little this little person. Blonde hair,
she
blue
keeps
eyes.
you accountable. That's what you want.
Absolutely, man. She's there like pulling me. She's like, hurry up, and I'm like, shit, all right, So, but she's she's good value. She's incredible little person, and I keep her shoes on my desk. Her first pair of shoes that she wore when she started walking. Yeah. And for me, it's very, very sacred to have that there, like as a never stop. You just can't stop. We cannot stop.
If she didn't stop, then you can't either
at all, man. And also where I am today, myself, man. This is one of the things I wanted to mention earlier when I say, our parents came from overseas, and this is one of the things that was also a big, big turning point in my life is realization and understanding things. The realization of the sacrifice that people give and the sacrifice indirectly that my dad did come to Australia for his future children is a massive, massive sacrifice. But we can understand, my dad came from overseas, and just say, okay, sweet, we're just going on with our lives. But really understanding the sacrifice that he did to come here, if we don't push and excel and really drive as hard as we can based off that, all the struggles that he went through and all the struggles that our grandparents went through to come to this country,
it's all in vain.
All in vain, man.
Yeah.
100%. And that's where we spoke about earlier, where people are just, like this first world issue where it's, I deserve to have that. No, man, someone paid a price for that, and
the age of entitlement now.
Absolutely, man. And that's where, we're super blessed. And it was a big, very, very turning point in my life, man. Like realization, understanding and realizing. And it prepared me for where I am today with my daughter.
I was gonna mention that. So you went through all this stuff growing up. You had your turning point. It's almost like the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's also almost like your suffering was only just going to begin, or your struggle.
Yeah.
And it's like all that happened wasn't in vain.
No.
Obviously, we're never meant to do the wrong thing, but like, look, you did the wrong thing. There's something to learn from it.
Yeah.
And it almost prepared you, for this.
It's crazy, man. I just get goosebumps. I haven't told you the story yet. It was when the big C was happening. My daughter was getting some therapy at one of the centers in Lane Cove, and the lady had a mask on and she's waving to me. And I'm like, you're waving at, I'm like looking behind me thinking, she's waving at me. She walked over, she's like, Simon. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, do I know you? She's like, yeah, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, oh, I don't remember. She goes, oh, my daughter's got cerebral palsy. I was like, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, my God, how are you? How's your daughter? She's like, yeah, she's fantastic. She's doing really well. She's, excelling. She's doing all this sort of stuff. She goes, what are you doing here? I said, oh, my daughter's actually at the center doing therapy. And she stopped and she looked at me. She's like, who's your daughter? And I said, oh, Gabby. She's like, oh, my God. She goes, I know Gabby. I'm like, how do you know Gabby? She's like, my daughter goes to the same center. I'm like, okay. She goes, you don't remember, do you? And I'm like, what? No, I don't. Unfortunately, I said, what is it? She goes, you remember you used to help me fundraise to, raise money for my daughter? I'm like, yeah. She goes, you actually used to help me fundraise to bring this center to Australia. So before I had my daughter, I was already fundraising to bring this clinic to Australia that my daughter now goes to. So it was just crazy that
the clinic at Randwick.
No, like a therapy clinic.
Oh, it's a different one.
Yeah, so it's a different. So it's a therapy clinic that my daughter.
So you were helping to fundraise for the very thing you ended up needing for your daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. That my daughter actually goes to now on a regular occurrence. So I was like blown away. I was like, what the hell, man? That shit is crazy. To know that I was fundraising to help to bring that. It's Napa Center is the place. I don't want to say its name, but anyway, we helped fundraise to bring Napa Center to Australia. And then fast forward, 10 or 12 years,
and Gabby
and now
attends.
We're literally going to Napa Center to help my daughter. So 10 years prior, we were there, and that was just part of my transformation. Helping and wanting to help and doing whatever I can to try and help the community, and no longer be all about me and what I can do for myself, and the dollar figure of what are you bringing to the table. All of that went out the door. It was about trying to service and help the community. Homeless feeds. Man, I used to do homeless feeds every weekend. Every weekend we would do homeless feeds, go to Parramatta. I used to know the dudes, man. I'd be sitting down and eating at Parramatta on Church Street, having lunch with my wife or my brother or whoever, and the homeless people would walk past. I'm like, man, come sit down with me. Like, oh, no, they'd be uncomfortable. I'm like, bro, don't be uncomfortable. Freaking sit down with me. What are you talking about, bro? You're like me. Who gives a shit? Fuck everyone else.
Yeah.
Sorry, my
that's
language,
fine.
but,
you can say whatever you want.
But who cares, bro? Come sit with us.
We're all the same,
You know
man.
what I mean? We're all, cut me, I bleed. I cut you, you bleed, bro. We're all exactly the same. Don't worry about it, bro. I got, and they loved me because of that. Because I had that real, like, I wasn't there trying to say, oh, I'm superior to you.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm here because I want to be here with you.
And that can become a problem with like homeless feeds and charitable works when people have this mindset of, I'm here to give you something, and it's from me.
100%.
Rather than I'm merely participating in God's work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Even with the same thing, like when we were in Myanmar, we went there with a lot of money. I didn't just give it to them because I didn't want them to feel that I was like, oh,
like their
I'm
charity
entitled.
cases. Yeah.
What are we going to do to open up a business together? I'm like, what? I said, we're opening up a business together. I want to invest in a business with you guys. You guys are going to run it and you guys are going to benefit from it, but I want to help you guys open up a business. What can we do? And they were like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Is he on drugs or something? So we ended up opening up a poultry farm. So they could live off the chicken, they could use the eggs, and any excess they could sell. So now they've created a business.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer giving them a handout so that, say 10 grand, for instance.
You're just enabling them to make their own money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm no longer, it's no longer a charity case because they're running their business. I just assisted them with it. It's that, teach a man to fish and give a man a fish, it'll last him a day.
Yeah.
Teach a man to fish,
it'll feed him for a lifetime. Yeah.
And that was that scenario. That was what we lived by. We don't want to go there and just give them this. So as we know, money disappears, especially in countries like that.
Yeah, it goes back to what we said before. You also have to remember, you're not just there to give them; they have something to give you.
Man,
it might not be money,
huge,
but they have something
humility,
to give you.
Man, they taught me so much.
Yeah,
I swear to God, man, you learn so much when you're, incredible. I got so many photos, man, and just I look at them from time to time, and it just really humbles me, brings me back down to where I need. And anyone who needs that, we talk about these situations and different situations that I've been in my life. If you ever need to be humbled or you ever want to feel, go work in a children's hospital ward. Go be a volunteer in a children's hospital ward, or just go to an emergency department and see the struggles. Man, you'll understand real quick. You want humility? You want to realize how entitled we are? Man, go volunteer in one of those places, man. I went and worked in Ronald McDonald House, and you see, man, a 2-year-old kid dragging his head across the floor has got brain cancer. That shit never leaves you, man. That shit never leaves you. Again, look at me, man. I'm covered in goosebumps, man, because I'm telling you straight out, that stuff will change your life forever. Go and put yourself, how big and how bad and however you think you are, go and put yourself in a situation like that and see how you cope. And that will change you. Will change anyone.
And then reflect on the argument, you had with your wife or your brother about what you wanted to watch last night.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
That's what we argue about.
Yeah. All the petty shit.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it, man. But a lot of people are just comfortable being, and God bless them if that's what they're, But for me, I was never like that. I always wanted to make sure I better myself.
Yeah.
I want to be a better person in the community, help wherever I can.
Yeah. And you really got to be honest with yourself. I remember, it's shameful, but it was last week, someone misplaced the jar of coffee that I was
that's my coffee.
Yeah. And I just got frustrated. And the same thing, I have this salt, some Celtic salt. I'm like, who touched my salt? It's always here. Why did you move my salt? And I just sat and I thought, man, I can't believe I just spent 5 minutes talking about salt.
Is that your Celtic roots?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. It's part of the beauty protocol. No, it's just, but we do it. We do it all the time.
I still do it, man. But I still do it.
The difference is whether we're honest enough to say, man, that was stupid.
Yeah. And that's where it becomes being like a real man. Are you a real man?
Yeah.
And a very good friend of mine, I said to him, he's a police officer. When he first saw my brother, we're at church. We did the Brothers United in Christ many years ago where all the men would come together. This was the same time that the persecution was happening in the Middle East. And my brother was at St. John the Beloved. My brother's heavily tattooed. Have you met my brother before?
No, I haven't met him.
Half his face is tattooed. All his head's tattooed. He's got a big cross on his neck. He's got teardrops. He's pretty, intimidating to meet. And he walked up to him. At the time, I didn't know him, but he walked up to the guy now that I'm very close with, who's a police officer, and said to him, will you come in to Mass? And the initial thought of my mate, who's the cop, is like, who the F are you to tell me to come into church? He judged him straight away by his appearance. Anyway, a week went past and I'd met my mate now who I'm very, very tight with. And he's like, man, he goes, I've got a confession to tell you. I'm like, bro, I barely know you. What do you mean you got a confession to tell me? He's like, man, listen, when your brother came up to me last week, he goes, I judged him by his appearance. He goes, but what I didn't tell you is that I saw him a day or two later, and he goes, I walked straight up to him and I told him straight to his face, listen, man, that day at church, you invited me into Mass and I judged you by your appearance. And he goes, I'm man enough to tell you that I did it and I do apologize and I hope you can forgive me for what I did.
Mm.
And that is a man.
Yeah.
Someone who's willing to be accountable for what they do.
Accountability.
And not be too proud to say, do you know what, man, I stuffed up, whatever. I shouldn't have done that. I apologize. I sincerely apologize, not whatever. I sincerely apologize. I'm sorry for the wrongdoing.
Yeah.
Let's move on from this.
Especially if the other person doesn't even know about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Your brother may have never known.
He didn't even think twice of it. But the fact that he went and did that, you know, really proves the point of what kind of person he actually is.
Yeah.
And you can't argue with that. Even if you did have a disagreement with a certain person or they did pick up on that, if you go and apologize and say, listen, I shouldn't have done that, there's no more argument. You can't argue with that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, yeah, man, it's just a lot of stuff that I've learned over the, you know, the last 15, 20 years. It's been incredible. And I'm extremely blessed. Like I said, I've traveled the world. I've been in some of the poorest places. I've been in some of the most incredible, rich places.
Yeah.
But
if you could summarize what you've learned over these years in sort of one line, what would it be? Take for a young guy.
For a young guy and even for a young girl.
For both, yeah.
Self-respect. Definitely have to have self-respect and humility. And understand that you're going to be held accountable for whatever you do, whether it be good, bad, or anywhere between. You need to be aware of what you're doing, and be aware of your surroundings. Again, whether it be good, bad, or in between, be aware of your surroundings.
Awesome.
You know, and I say that from almost like a military perspective. I love the military.
Yeah.
And you need to be aware of what's happening around you all the time.
Yeah.
You know, definitely. Yeah. It just, if you're aware of what's happening around you, you can eliminate so much. So, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Simon,
brother,
it's been a pleasure.
You. Absolute pleasure,
It's been an honor.
Thank you very much for having me on,
thanks
man.
for coming, man. It was awesome. On for too long. No, it's awesome, man. We could have, all we need is a room we can crack these cigars open. We would have gone for another 2 hours. So.
Bro, at my place, I'm just putting the final touches in to have my room built at my house. I'd love to have you at my house, man.
That'd be awesome.
And we can do this, crack a couple of cigars.
Do a little masterclass, maybe.
Man, absolutely, please. Get all your followers on there. They can...
all 50 of my followers. Yeah, look, they're dedicated though. They're small, but they're dedicated.
That's what we need, bro. It's not quantity, it's quality.
100%, man.
And that's what we learned, bro.
Thanks so much,
God
man.
bless you, my brother.
Until next time.